ease your mind. Think about something else, like how you're definitely overdue for a massage. Having a fire or flood in your home is devastating. Fire damage, water damage, and smoke everywhere? Well, to fight with insurance companies or contractors. Renavco specializes in full service restorations, including the smell of smoke, damage removal, and new design and rebuilding. They also deal with the insurance company, all with one project manager to keep the work moving smoothly. Call 556-9993 or visit renovco.com. Have you been told that hand surgery is complicated? The truth is that most procedures to cure hand pain are simple, quick, relatively pain-free, and our patients typically return to their activities within a week. Hi, I'm Dr. Daniel Duran, board-certified hand surgeon at MontrealHandSurgery.com. If you suffer with carpal tunnel syndrome, de Quervain's disease, trigger finger, or any other condition that limits use of your hands, our patented micro-incision techniques will get your hands back into shape quickly and
I thought trigger finger is what they say when cops have a problem with shooting people. No, it's an actual illness. Mm. 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 Mm.
The case, in fact, that COVID was classified as a national security threat by the U.S. government and the Department of Defense on February 4th, 2020, and this information was allegedly kept from President Donald Trump. The reason we know this, because of the leaked audio and the coverage, is because of Sasha Latypova, who is a former pharma executive who turned investigative journalist, and she writes about this on her Substack and is exposing this fraud and cover-up of these pharmaceutical industries and the lies that we were told during the COVID pandemic. And Sasha joins us now. Great to see you and great work as always. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Clayton. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. So let's talk about this leaked audio. Actually, first let's talk about what's the story we've been told? What is the story we've all been told? What is the story that maybe President Trump was told? All American people were told before we get into what is the truth.
Yeah, so as you recall from the story that there is a zoonotic jump of a virus in China, and there were mixed stories whether it's a bat or pangolin, but the idea was that this is some sort of a wet market event in Wuhan, and there's this transmission to humans, and from one person you have this spreading all over the world, and now we have this dangerous pandemic, and we all have to be in fear, being locked down, don't go to school, and so forth. So as you remember, and they're still trying to portray it as maybe it was a zoonotic, although long ago they kind of conceded to the fact that this was something engineering. But also, as you recall, even before 2020, for decades, we have been propagandized about pandemics and these events, and this was designed on purpose by Hollywood, by media, by academic false and false narratives that they published on as well, describing that something like this can happen, will happen, and then a very dangerous virus will escape and kill half the world. And that's why people were preset into this mind frame where you hear the trigger word of pandemic of a virus, and everyone is and goes along with the narrative.
We had a movie Contagion, big Hollywood movie that was
Outbreak.
Outbreak, yeah.
Contagion.
Contagion. I thought Contagion to me was the most spot on. It was like came out just a few short years before this happened, and it showed us exactly what unfolded. Oh, it was from it happened over in Asia somewhere, and suddenly all of America is locked down, and it's a disaster. I forget who it was. It was Gwyneth Paltrow, I think, and
yes, they always have big stars in these movies, big stars and big budgets. Very
big budget.
And, contrived stories.
Very big.
Right. So was the case. So we were all pre-programmed. So that's what we were told, right? That's what happened. Wet market, a bat, a pangolin, whatever. It comes to America, we've got to really lock ourselves down, hate the Chinese, block ourselves off. But what's the truth? What really happened here?
Well, so the truth, it turns out that this was all preset way years before. So from this leaked audio, but it's not the only source. This is just a confirmatory evidence that I obtained. But prior to that, I reviewed DoD and DARPA contracts that were given for COVID countermeasures, which is all these vaccines and biologics and therapeutics are classified as. So I reviewed hundreds of contracts. They all indicate that this is pre-planned because we were also led to believe that this, 400 contracts for $50 billion were supposed to be signed within a matter of weeks. Like 1 or 2 weeks. Some of them came out as early as middle of February or even early February. So you tell me, January 10th, we identified the virus. By February 14th, we have issued, $50 billion worth of contracts, negotiated all the terms, signed with all the pharmas. So of course not. These contracts were coming from years beforehand. So there was a lot of evidence that there was huge pre-planning of this activity, and now I have this tape confirming exactly the same thing.
Before we get to the tape, you've worked obviously in the pharmaceutical industry with a lot of clients for many, many years, so you know this intimately. How long would hey, we've discovered something, we need to start working on a vaccine for it, to getting paperwork together or to have it signed, sealed, and delivered? Like, what would the timetable normally be if this wasn't pre-planned?
Yeah, so for a contract of this size and scope, it would take easily a year to negotiate all the terms, negotiate the deliverables, negotiate the R&D schedules and timelines and all sorts of things. So easily can take a year. Okay, I can say if you're in a hurry, maybe 6 months. So that's just the contract. But then the development itself, well, it can take 10 years to properly develop something and go through all the phases of approval as the Food and Drugs and Cosmetics Act prescribed for normal pharmaceutical approvals. That's why everybody was shocked that, this came on the market so quickly.
So let's talk about this leaked audio. What is it? What do we hear in this audio that confirms that this was pre-planned?
Right. So the audio conversation, it has a video. I removed the video just out of caution. The video doesn't add additional information. It's from a internal meeting in AstraZeneca, and it includes 2 speakers. First is the CEO of AstraZeneca, Pascal Soriot, and the second one is the VP who was in charge of monoclonal antibody development program. And they're discussing their success of monoclonal antibody in the US, a success of approval at some time at the end of 2020. And so they're referring back to the history of this. And then Mark Esser says that if we started working with the Department of Defense pandemic preparedness program in 2017. He also mentions that they were approached by Department of Defense, Colonel Matt Hepburn in particular, with a proposal that they would with the DoD to develop vaccines and therapeutics within 60 days of DoD identifying pathogenic virus that can cause global pandemics. And at that time, Mark Esser said, I thought it was science fiction. Because that was the appropriate reaction to it. It is science fiction. You can't do that. But of course, AstraZeneca was quickly convinced by money, and they joined a consortium of many, many companies, of which I've reviewed, hundreds of contracts. And that consortium is called MCDC, a DoD consortium of huge number of pharmaceutical companies, academic institutions, and other organizations. They're all involved in this, and that's been going on for years. So that's what they discussed. Then they said, and so we were working on, they were calling it pan-influenza models. And then on February 4th, 2020, they received a call from DoD, I suppose all the pharma companies did at the time, to switch to COVID and start immediately working on COVID vaccines and products. And so my question is, February 4th, if you look back, we have 11 cases of COVID in the United States and no deaths. These were all PCR cases. There was nothing going on in terms of pandemics. And DoD is calling pharma companies, telling them it's national security threat. Based on what? And start working on COVID.
So it's unbelievable. It is unbelievable and it's shocking. And every American should be absolutely enraged by this. So the Pentagon leadership, then, as I mentioned in the intro, it seems that President Trump was unaware of this. Is that your reporting?
It's basically, yes, appears to be the case, because February 4th, again, the timeline is very telling. So on February 4th, DoD, so we don't have any information coming out. Nobody's informed in the public. The DoD goes ahead with the pharma consortium to start working on COVID. Then at that time also, there was a good article by Brownstone Institute. They kind of traced Trump's tweets at the time and when did he change his mind about lockdowns. It looks like he changed his mind about lockdowns between 10th and 11th of March. So a month later. Here we already have DoD saying, hey guys, go work on this, right? So under whose authority? So Trump between 10th and 11th. And then still on March 20th at the press conference, there was this famous press event where Mike Pompeo says we're in live exercise, and Trump is visibly surprised by this. He says, you should have told us, kind of blurts out, you should have told us.
Right, yeah.
Right. So who pulled the trigger? Literally, who told everyone we're go live exercise COVID without notifying the president, it seems like.
Well, and as we learned recently in Tucker's reporting with Mike Benz, that this has, the Pentagon basically runs the country. The Pentagon runs the White House. It runs the country. For anybody that thinks that President Biden is, come on, let's not kid ourselves here, right? So, and this was one of Trump's biggest complaints, of course, that trying to drain the swamp, that you have this entrenched, permanent Washington that's running the show here. So what was the motivation then? We have the World Economic Forum's motivation and all this, right? The idea of a 15-minute city where they don't want us driving, they want us to work from home, they want us to be under this control. We want a central bank that controls everything. Everything is tracked and monitored and structured, right? That's their piece of this. The United States, though, is it as simple as biopharmaceutical companies making a whole lot of money, and their influence in Washington is so strong that the Pentagon goes along with this plan to allow them to make tens of billions of dollars enriching themselves? Like, is it follow the money? Is that simply what we're looking at here, or is it follow the money and control?
Yes, it's follow the money and control and power. So money and power is basically the explainers of everything. And it's true that the Pentagon needs pharma industry to make money to fund them. Because that's where the money goes. Okay, and by about 2017, pharma industry of returns on investment. There is a famous graph. It shows it once it goes negative now. So there is no more return on investment in pharmaceutical industry as of 2017. So they needed to switch to the entire new portfolio of intellectual property, which they, so even if there was no murderous intent, they already had financial hardship to switch to entire new portfolio of IP, of which this is the sum of it.
And so I guess I'll get you out of here on this, Sasha, which is, the back in a wet lab. Was it orchestrated in a lab in Wuhan? Did it, though, in fact, come out of Pentagon in Fort Detrick? Was it where exactly? Do we know where this exactly was orchestrated and built?
Yes, actually, maybe we should follow up. I will have another Substack coming exactly on that issue and using DoD's own press conferences to demonstrate where it exactly came from. So we're going through their own, in their own words, using their own press events. We can where this came from and what likely it was. So I would encourage readers to subscribe to my Substack, but I'm happy to come back after I publish this and we can have another conversation and show it.
Hell yeah. Yes, we will have you back on that piece of this. Well, this is enough. This is enough right now for us to swallow and try to digest. I encourage our audience to go and read this amazing piece about this leaked audio from AstraZeneca and what we knew about this planned pandemic months ahead of time, years ahead of time, as you point out. Sasha, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your work and continued success. Please, thank you. And hopefully you'll come back soon.
You're such a fucking
Yes,
freak.
thank you, Clayton.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure.
Ugh.
And I just want to ask everyone here in the chat, what do you guys think about that? It's an
I think that
unbelievable
you're
story. I mean, it was orchestrated and planned, and
Like,
the
why
president of the
are you
United
talking
States
like
was
that?
not aware of it, was not brought into these meetings, was not made aware that this is a national security threat, and the plans
Oh, now it's raining.
years ahead of time. So, okay, let us know your thoughts on that in the comments below. And Sasha's great reporting on this. We'll have more on that as we look more closely at these corrupt.
Yeah.
Again, this comes back to the Mike Benz interview that Tucker did with Mike Benz about the Pentagon running the show. I mean, the Pentagon runs everything.
Yeah.
And this is just another example of that right here. Any thoughts? All right, coming up here on the show.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna.
Ah,
I
shit.
was gonna say I'm looking forward to reading her Substack. I'm gonna probably do that right after the show because I want to hear that audio and just see.
Yeah, you can listen to the audio. The leaked audio's in there. You can listen to that. And her next piece that she's working on, it's going to be big. So we'll have her back on that. So we've got more news to get to here on your Wednesday. This is a big story. Maybe one of the biggest stories in journalism right now is what just happened with the New York Times. We're going to expose that story and dive deep into that scandal. Can you trust the New York Times at all? When did you stop trusting the New York Times? How many years ago was it for you? Tell us like it's like an AA meeting. You know, like when did you lose faith in the American media? When did you stop trusting the New York Times? For me, it was like, I don't know, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, something like that.
I have a list. I have a list of reasons.
But we're going to go into this. It's an amazing story. It really is a bombshell story at the New York Times. I don't know how they recover from that, and I don't know how many people are actually subscribing to this fake rag anymore, but anyway, we'll get to the bottom of that. But first, we want to tell you about our friends over at Buy Optimizers, because do you know if you're getting enough magnesium? Because 4 out of 5 Americans are not. You toss and turn at night. It's a big problem because actually magnesium is involved in just like magnesium deficiency, so it's the cheapest kind. Makes you feel differently. You can get a full refund. Optimizers.com/redacted. That's BI to 17,000 if you watch this live on Rumble. And what do we get? About 12 to 13,000 watching on YouTube. So Rumble.
Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. Feels good to know that that is a place where there are fewer consequences for stepping toes out of line.
Yeah, I mean, like literally the story tonight we were talking about with Sasha, it's like, you know, there's in their terms of service, like you gotta watch out on YouTube, like what you could say still about pandemic related stuff.
We're doing a dance, you guys.
It's freaking crazy. So
We're doing a dance.
anyway, all right. Well, someone else is doing a dance, and it's the New York Times. This is a shocking story at the New York Times. I hope you pay attention to every word of it. You cannot make this up. A New York Times reporter has just been outed and is now being investigated by the New York Times, and sources say she's been fired for 2 reasons. One, for making up fake news and fabricating the now famous mass rape hoax story that the New York Times ran as a cover story, which has now been fully debunked. And 2, the second reason she's been fired, just so happens to be a former Israeli intelligence officer who worked in the Israeli Air Force.
Oh, you missed that one, did you?
I mean, this is who the New York Times hires to be their reporters. It gets worse, by the way. It gets worse. I'm just starting.
Okay.
I'm just starting. This is really a shocking story about really how the deep state plants people inside of newsrooms to get propaganda pushed out to the masses, and how the New York Times, of course, is one of the most corrupt news organizations in the world. Are you wondering, by the way, how the hell the New York Times just managed to get this exclusive scoop of a story about all of these CIA offices in Ukraine? It wasn't a scoop. They were invited by the CIA to come to Ukraine and walk those offices. They are a mouthpiece of the intelligence community. So when you read a New York Times article, always remember that, folks. They are not a news organization. They are a mouthpiece of the intelligence community. They are corrupt. As Americans, we should be asking, how does Israeli intelligence, though, a whole other country, manage to plant a fake reporter in an American news outlet like the New York Times and then let her publish a front page story? It gets worse. So let's actually go through some of these details here. The article in question that set off a firestorm was titled thusly, Screams Without Words, How Hamas Weaponized Sexual Violence on October 7th. Now, we're not saying that sexual violence didn't happen on October 7th. That's not what this story is about today. What we're specifically focusing on is this. Okay, that's what we're focusing on. And then how it was parroted around the mainstream media like CNN, BBC, Fox News, all over the place. So just so we're clear what we're talking about here. So this was published just after Christmas on December 28th, that news story. And it set off a firestorm. Three reporters at the New York Times contributed to this story, this now debunked story. One of which was this woman. A woman by the name of Anat Schwartz. There she is. Keep her up on the screen, if you will. She's playing with her hair. She's teasing her hair. You can see she was born and served in the IDF intelligence service for the Israeli Air Force. We know this thanks to amazing reporting over the past few hours from the Zay Squirrel. Even friend of the show, Glenn Greenwald, had this to say about Squirrel. One of the most significant journalistic scandals at the New York Times in the last couple of years was broken. Squirrel. Yeah, in the past 24 hours. We already knew the article had been debunked, but thanks to this guy, Squirrel, we now know her IDF connections and her social media posts about annihilating Palestinians. More on that part of the story in a second, so she'd like to talk about that on social media. What else do we know about her, though? Well, we know she's never once in her, listen to this, she's never once in her life published another news article.
Wait, what?
She's never, I'll repeat it for those paying attention, she's never once in her life
Are you serious?
another news article.
You gotta be kidding.
Meaning she's never written a single piece of journalism, published journalism ever. But she somehow
That's bad.
published a front
That's
page
really
story
bad.
at the New York Times. How exactly does that happen? Imagine that hiring meeting for a second. Well, Mrs. Schwartz, good to see you. Looks like you've got your writing resume here in front of me. I see you've never written anything before, in your entire life that's been published in any newspaper or any magazine, not even Cat Fancy magazine.
Cat
You
Fancy.
did make a film, but you never written anything. And no one has ever heard of you before, but we received a phone call from the Israeli intelligence service, and well, good news, you're hired.
Because I was thinking,
And we're going to put you on the front page.
anybody can decide to be a journalist if you disclose your biases. Anybody can be a trustworthy journalist if you disclose your biases, right? And had she been an experienced journalist, or had she said, I know this from these internal sources, that would be fine, right? We're not saying that someone who has a past in Israeli army could never be a trustworthy journalist. That's not the case. But having no small margin of experience, never been a journalist before,
Right.
yeah, that doesn't fly. If you've been in the business, you know as journalists, you have to start all papers and work hard, but yet you don't start at the paper of record, New York Times.
Yeah, you don't start at the New York Times.
No.
I mean, I guess.
Oh my
perhaps
God.
Israeli
You're like a
intelligence
16-year-old
service
girl.
out there
Yeah.
puts you in that way. But it gets worse. Because Zay Squirrel found out Schwartz was simultaneously working at the New York Times.
Okay, so all of this benefit of the doubt I'm giving her is dying on the vine.
Yeah.
Now, right before our very eyes.
And how do we know that? We know this because it's on her freaking Wikipedia or his LinkedIn page. So she's working for Israeli Public Broadcasting at the same time she's working for the New York Times. But even beyond working for Israeli intelligence is the fact that she has a history of liking social media posts that call for the total annihilation of Palestinians and the Gaza Strip. So maybe she could have disclosed that in her article, like, hey, I'm the reporter on this story. Hey, by the way, I would love to see Palestinians annihilated. She could have put that in the story. Maybe we wouldn't have thought she's an actual reporter. We would have gotten accurate information. She liked this tweet, for instance. Here's a tweet she liked on October 7th, where this guy says, quote, you can see that Anand liked this tweet. He says, turn the strip into a slaughterhouse. Head execute security prisoners. Violate any norm on the way to victory for them to see and be seen. So she liked that tweet, annihilate them.
I learned a term for this today. It's called offense archaeology.
Okay.
When you look through somebody's social media and see what they've done in the past that is relevant, just thought I'd share. It's called offense archaeology. Well, that one's
offensive.
Yeah, that's pretty.
So this New York Times article, and here's again the front page to remind you of this, screams without words how Hamas weaponized sexual violence on October 7th. Look at this family, right? This family, of course, the way the New York Times paints it is they're in ruins, of course, and they're detailing here the family's daughter and their history of sexual violence and the killing of babies to terrorize the Israelis on October 7th. The article, of course, has been totally debunked by the great reporting.
Shit, Sherlock.
First debunked
Ridiculous.
this, first
Like,
debunk it, and then others came along.
fucking most outrageous shit ever.
Other news organizations have now done the same. This original New York Times fake story. So even the Israeli family featured in this New York Times article refuted the story. The family whose photo you saw there. No, our daughter wasn't raped. We can't believe the New York Times actually said that, the family said. So the Israeli family featured in that photo of this article said the New York Times manipulated them. The family told Israeli newspapers that the New York Times fabricated the rape part of the story. There's no evidence our daughter was raped. Whoops. Well, we just wanted to, we're the New York Times, we just wanted to stick some rape in there. Sorry, we needed to spice it up a little bit. I guess that's what the New York Times does. Just add a little bit of rape to a story.
All the murder wasn't enough. They wouldn't get eyes on their article.
We need to also say that your daughter was raped when she wasn't. We just got to add that in here. But here's the amazing piece of this, if it's not amazing enough already. The Israeli police issued a statement before the New York Times ran that piece. Told the New York Times, the Israeli police told the New York Times they have zero evidence of rape. And they said they haven't been able to find anyone or any eyewitnesses to confirm it. And there's no evidence whatsoever. And they told the New York Times this. Israel police told them before the piece ran, and the New York Times didn't include that piece of information in their article. Like, oh, the Israeli police reached out to us for comment before this piece ran. They told us they have zero evidence of the rapes that we're cataloging in this entire piece that have now been debunked. The Israeli police said they debunked it. But the damage was done because CNN, Fox News, all of these people ran this story about how Hamas, killed babies and then raped Israelis on that day, and they cited this story. CNN can confirm these stories.
We have some really disturbing new information out of Israel. The Israeli Prime Minister's spokesman just confirmed babies and toddlers were found with their heads decapitated in Kfar Aza in southern Israel after Hamas attacks in the kibbutz over the weekend. That has been confirmed by the Prime Minister's office.
So the Prime Minister's office confirmed that. So did the New York Times. So interestingly, the New York Times also has a podcast called The Daily. And The Daily was all set to publish a companion podcast about this rape article where they would then talk about it. So it's like a director's track. Here's our article that we stand by. This fake rape article has been debunked. And here's our podcast where we're going to talk about the article. We'll invite our reporters on to talk about it, right? They did. So apparently internally, they were having doubts about this article because there's a lot of people coming out debunking the story. They're like, should we run this daily podcast as well? Because I don't know. According to The Intercept, there were suddenly discussions about just delaying the podcast or even editing it. Instead, they did nothing. They decided, no, we're not going to shelve it. We're not going to edit it. We're just going to run it as is. So we're going to double down on our bad reporting and we're just going to add more fuel to the fire, so to speak. They doubled down on the fake story. Well, since the news broke then, Anat Schwartz set her account to private. Of course. So she set her account to private, and while she set it private, she was busy scrubbing her entire history. And then she reopened the account, and she published the account again, where it was available, and you could see that she had removed all of the "we should annihilate Palestinians" tweets and likes and all of that. So she had gone through and scrubbed it, and then once that was not enough, then she decided to totally delete her account. So you can now see that the account is totally gone. This account doesn't exist anymore. So she deleted it. There were two other reporters, by the way, on this story. Adam Sella and then also Jeffrey Gettleman. Turns out that Sella is just 24 years old and is the nephew of Anat Schwartz.
Get out of here.
So, just closed her Twitter account. She's masquerading as a New York Times reporter. He's the nephew through marriage of Anat Schwartz. So they're really keeping this in the family.
Shocking.
In this New York Times, in this New York Times news. As they squirrel reported on X, this guy Silla has never written a piece like this before. He'd only written food reviews.
Well, that's quite a promotion. Then that's nice that he gets this important intelligence story.
So he's now a front page New York Times reporter, also the nephew of Anat. He never published anything. Man, the New York Times really.
Weren't there at least food reviews of Palestinian food? Like, is there any correlation at all? Or?
Well, let's zoom in on that.
Yeah, I don't know.
What kind of food is this?
I don't know. What's
Sustainable food is his.
Yeah, so take a look. Here it is. So here's Isaiah Squirrel's tweet on this. He says, if I told you that the New York Times hired a recently graduated college student with only a couple of prior articles written on the subject of food and cooking to be their lead on the ground reporter on the mass rape hoax they fabricated, would you believe it? That's Adam Sella right there. My background working for various publications and food companies combined with my hands-on work in kitchens and farms makes me well suited to write about sustainable food.
Sustainable food.
So, how does an Israeli?
I want to apply for a job at New York Times now because with my editing experience, my actual editing experience, I freaking be CEO, or at least be in charge of their global broadcasting network. All videos.
Run the place.
I actually have experience.
No, you're overqualified for the New York Times.
I'm overqualified.
You have to be 24 and have no journalistics experience at all, basically.
You're a little too up on the news, Philip, having worked on Redacted for several years now.
You're overqualified.
I got that. I never worked for the CIA, and neither do any of my relatives. So I guess that does disqualify me.
Disqualified.
You're disqualified.
You have no biases and you don't like war? Get the heck out of here.
So how does an Israeli intelligence officer and her nephew, who's never written a piece like this, get put on this story? Oh wait, there's one more. Remember, who's the other reporter on the story? They had to put in a guy who's been around for a while at the New York Times to maybe give this story some legitimacy. This is Jeffrey Gettleman. There is his glamour shot. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner at the New York Times, foreign correspondent. He's written a memoir called Love in Africa, right? So there's Jeffrey Gettleman, New York Times reporter. He's the third reporter on this story. So Gettleman, I guess, adds his name to the story to legitimize the story. I don't exactly know, but that seems to be the case here, because what evidence do you have, Jeffrey, that the story you wrote that these women were actually raped? What evidence do you have as a reporter? I mean, reporters go through evidence, right? And the police even told you before the piece ran that they had zero evidence. So what evidence do you have about this? Where's your evidence? Well, he was asked about this, Jeffrey Gettleman. He was asked about this at a reporter forum. Watch.
I don't want you to use the word evidence because evidence is almost like a legal term that suggests you're trying to prove an allegation or prove a case in court. That's not my role. We all have our roles, and my role is to document, is to present information, is to give people a voice. And we found information.
It's not evidence.
So we don't have any evidence. I'm not going to use the word evidence. I mean, this is...
It's information. We might have, made it up.
We might have made it up, but it's
I'm losing my damn mind here. Without evidence, you're just making stuff up.
right.
If you don't have evidence, it's an opinion piece.
Yeah.
Even opinion pieces sometimes use evidence. What the hell, man? Use the word evidence and then use evidence.
Like this idiot.
The evidence is what creates the information.
Right.
Yeah,
You can't have one without the other.
like this idiot in the
Or
chat.
else it's fiction.
Like this idiot in the chat says, Alberto, he says, redacted stands with Hamas. What the fuck are you talking about, you
Get the hell out of here.
idiot? What we're talking about is
Wow.
a specific New York Times story infiltrated by Israeli intelligence. That's
Love
the
when
focus
Natalie
of
finds
this
her
segment,
balls.
you moron. So the New York Times still has the article available, which has been debunked and is fake news. It's still on their website, and they haven't even issued a correction. The only correction, if you read the article, if you scroll to the bottom of it, is about the age of a person in the article. They corrected her age. Not that the whole article is fake, and it's all been debunked, and the family says you made it up, and the Israeli police say you made it up. But it's still up on their website. And so at this hour, according to she is out of a job, but I guess under an investigation by the New York
But did
Times.
she really have a job, given that this was her first story?
I mean, here's the thing: you can,
Does she have medical equipment or medical coverage and a 401k? It seems like she was not that well established.
this is you can throw her under the bus then, right? As she was a rogue reporter, but we at the New York Times we didn't know about this. She's a rogue reporter. We didn't realize that she was secretly worked for the intelligence. So, but we've got our newsroom under control here.
Mm-hmm.
And her nephew, the 24-year-old food writer, we're going to talk to him as well. But don't worry about it. We're going to put him back on the food beat. He'll be covering restaurants in the Upper West Side.
Okay.
So that's your New York Times. Corrupt newspapers in America, a paper of record. Let us know your thoughts on that in the comments below. We've got more news to get to here on your Wednesday, if you can believe that. China.
I cannot believe that. That is the limit. I really can't. So, I don't know what to say. You have to apologize for that. I know I say this all the time, and then the chat room goes crazy. No apology, shut him down.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to even get rid of them. Let's multiply them by 0.
Well, and the thing is, they always do that. The damage has been done, and then they do a little retraction. It's in the bottom, edited. We made a mistake, sorry. But nobody sees that. Nobody cares. Damage has been done.
What they really should do is run a whole other piece about this.
Yeah.
And have to account for this, but there's not going to be any of that, of course. My point is the damage is already done.
Yeah.
Right? The damage is already done. And now that story goes around the world, and no one cares. No one cares about the truth except maybe you guys who are watching. And
Nobody cares about what the Whites have to say.
for that in the chat.
Oh, come on,
you
White.
realize that this is the truth. And so we'll continue to shine a light on this story. It's unbelievable. Anyway, we got more news to get you here in a moment.
We're going to talk about China finding massive oil reserves and Europe freaking out that China might want their lithium that they're not getting. What is this about? What is the power shift that's happening in terms of energy?
Ryan Lydia.
Energy, we're going to talk about electric
What do you want
vehicles
to fight
that
Lydia?
never
Why
work.
Ryan Lydia?
Well, we're going to see if they can
money.
actually cry about the Apple car.
No.
Are you going to cry?
No. I have something to say.
Are you sure?
I'm not going to cry at all.
Okay, all right. I like to often accuse Clayton of being a fanboy, an Apple fanboy, and so we'll see how he really feels. Get ready to push his button. I'm going to, but I was like,
Truth.
want to tell you about our friends over at Lear Capital. It's no secret if you're tuned in, you know that experts are predicting a recession heading our way. Layoffs are already happening, and the government is ready to print more money, further devaluing the U.S. dollar. While last year was terrible for most investors, 2024 could be even worse. That is, unless you were smart and invested in gold. Now, I just a few hours before the show was tweeting a little bit about gold and how the United States took gold out of the hands of American people. How did that even happen? How did Americans give up their gold?
You had to tyranny your gold. I mean, people don't know their history.
Yeah,
You had to
this
tyranny
is
your gold.
crazy, right? This is something we're going to talk about maybe tomorrow on the show.
And Putin has been encouraging his citizens to
Yes,
buy
they can trade. They can buy
realize the fact,
groceries.
The importance of owning gold and silver right now in this
He did this
crazy
like
environment.
So in this
2022.
crazy environment, can you imagine handing over your gold? It seems
No.
like more of a hedge bet than ever before. So if you're interested in investing in gold, then our friends at Lear will help you start purchasing precious metals or converting part of your IRA or 401k into a gold silver IRA. So you should call them and ask questions. Call 800-613-3557 or go to learredacted.com. Right now, if you buy 1 ounce of gold,
Yeah, but do they send you an ounce of gold?
3 ounce of silver, which is incredible. That's literally free silver you can keep or sell immediately. There are a lot of gold companies to choose from, but Lear has over 25 years of experience and thousands of 5-star reviews and a risk-free guarantee that gives you 24 hours to review your purchase before committing. So call them, ask questions, see if it fits your investing or your profile for what it is you want to do in terms of wealth preservation or hedging your bets in this strange world we've got. So call 800-613-3557 or go to Lear Redacted today.
Buy gold.
LearRedacted.com.
Don't invest
Get
in
your
the
free
market
gold and
of
silver
gold.
investor guide and up to $15,000 in free bonus metals with a qualified purchase. One more time, that's LearRedacted.com. Will China come for Serbia's lithium and create a new
Oh dear.
core of resources? Now, Serbia has a large reserve of lithium, but they are not mining it yet. The president says
it's Trudeau
they
wants
just
it.
might, and environmentalists are freaking out. Ukraine has lithium, incidentally. They are not mining it either. So you see why we might be making this connection. Lithium reserve, possibility for war. Am I making a connection or am I not? We have a guest today, Nick
No.
Stankovic. He joins us today, and he's an expert in Asian politics and also a Serbian who has great contacts all the time on X. This is his first time on Redacted. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, so why do you say that Europe might be freaking out about Serbia's lithium?
Well, it goes, it's connected to the whole competition with China, especially in the auto industry and batteries. China is really ahead of the game in front of everybody. It's a little bit of less of an issue in the United States because the US has a lot of oil and is not necessarily so excited about electric vehicles. But of course, Germany is a huge auto producer, and China has just become the #1 exporter of vehicles in the world, bypassing Germany and also last year Japan. So China is now #1 exporter of vehicles, and most of it is now becoming EVs. And China is also way ahead of everybody in batteries, and Germany is kind of freaking out, as is Japan as well, because they're behind the curve. And part of that is, of course, that even if Germany catches up on some of the EV tech, there's the battery part where also China is dominant. And so Europe is trying to find alternate sources of specifically lithium. And there's been a find in Serbia it's actually been found in 2004, so it's been a while. But it's sort of been stopped because of environmental concerns, but it's now becoming hot again, as especially this sort of shock of the automotive industry and batteries.
Now, do you think the Serbian people want it because it could be such a boon for their economy, or is it just a matter of, much like in Alaska, we have oil and gas reserves that have been not mined, litigated up to the teeth, And all of those people in those communities say they want this, they want these jobs. Is that similar to what's happening in Serbia?
No, it's actually very different. It's actually very different, and I think most of the people in Serbia do not want it. I would say probably 2/3. And it's not even political in terms of the party in power and the opposition. I think it's actually quite universal that even most of the people who were voting, for example, for the ruling party, which is his party, are against it. And most of the people in Serbia.
We're gonna go ahead and charge our devices.
There's obviously going to be an environmental damage. I mean, that's just.
Yeah, and charge your devices. Charge whatever devices that that you might need to use. Do you want your charger? In case power goes out.
Yeah, okay.
Because they said it's gonna be crazy high winds. But honestly, our what do you call it? Our power or electricity's been good. You wanna come downstairs? Come. Ew. I want your love and I want... Fuck! God damn it. Is it still raining out there? Woo! Hacho! Oh my god. Okay. Pretty crazy out there. Okie dokie then. Sonyo. Oh shit. Okay. Stay. Phone charger. Oh shit.
Force has revealed that the Liberals stopped the police from SNC Lavalin affair. Will this government waive cabinet confidentiality so that the police can get all the facts it needs for this criminal inquiry? The Right Honorable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, this situation is unacceptable, and that's why the authorities are closely examining this procurement process. Anyone who took advantage of our COVID approach to save Canadians should face the consequences. If they abuse the system, there will be consequences based on what the authorities find. The Honorable Leader of the Opposition. That is a non-answer, and it shows once again that this Prime Minister is not worth the cost. The question was whether he would allow the RCMP to see cabinet documents. We know that during the other criminal inquiry on one of this Liberal Prime Minister's scandal, he prevented the police from seeing all the documents. I'm speaking about the SNC Lavalin. And if he really has nothing to hide, will he give all documents, including cabinet documents, to the police? The Right Honorable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we can see how much this opposition leader loves facts when he dredges up issues that were completely settled 4 years ago. We take the Arrive-Can issue very seriously. That is why the authorities are carrying out a responsible inquiry inquiries, and there will be consequences for anyone who took advantage of a situation where we are all trying to help Canadians through a global pandemic.
Common sense conservatives fight to axe the tax bill, helps fix the budget, and stop the crime. This prime minister is not worth the cost. More corruption we found yesterday is under RCMP investigation. Again, this time for a bribe scam. The commissioner of the RCMP revealed, however, that the last time they were investigating him for criminal activity, he blocked them in the SNC-Lavalin affair from getting cabinet documents. So will he lift cabinet confidentiality and hand over all the documents to the police so that they can investigate any of his potential crimes?
Obviously unacceptable, which is why authorities are looking into this procurement process. And anyone who took advantage of everything we were doing to try and keep people safe during COVID to get rich will face consequences. That's the way our system works.
Here's the opposition. But that's not the way the system has worked since he took office 8 years ago. According to the RCMP commissioner, he not only refused to be questioned at the SNC-Lavalin criminal investigation, again in the Aga Khan Billionaire Island investigation, but he blocked key cabinet documents from being included in those investigations. We now know that half that was supposed to cost $80,000 went up to $60 million after the NDP helpfully voted for those extra funds. We don't know who criminally benefited from that. So once again, will the Prime Minister waive cabinet confidentiality, turn over all the documents, yes or no?
Moving on to the Prime Minister. To try and bring up things that were settled many years ago. He really wants to talk about the past. He should talk about the fact that the Conservative leader was Transport Canada working hand in hand with the minister as the founders of the company involved in Arrivecan were getting millions of dollars in contracts from the department he was working for. Mr. Speaker, we are taking seriously any concerns around procurement. Authorities are looking into it. There will be consequences. Right who took care of our COVID protection efforts to get themselves rich.
The opposition. The answer proves again that he's not worth the cost or the corruption. We know that after 8 years of this prime minister, the cost of everything has gone up in part because he's given away money for nothing. The Arrive scam, a cap that was supposed to cost $80,000, was actually how much? $60 million at least, and counting, because the Auditor General says she doesn't have the documentation for the full calculation today, though. We have a common sense conservative motion that requires the Prime Minister release the full cost of the app and recover money for Canadians within the next 100 days. Will he vote for that common sense motion? Yes or no?
We see the leader of the opposition choosing to play one of the question that I've said. It's unacceptable. The authorities are looking into it, but he doesn't want to talk about the housing investments that we're making across the country. He doesn't want to talk about the fact that he voted against dental care that seniors are going to be benefiting from as of May. He doesn't want to talk about child care. He doesn't want to talk about Ukraine. He doesn't want to talk about all the things where conservatives are out of line with Canadians. We're going to continue focusing on the things that matter to Canadians every single day.
This government, the NDP, wants to create Medicare that won't give anything additional to Quebec, which already covers drugs and which was inspiration for the federal government. That would be okay with me as long as Quebec has a right to withdraw with full compensation and with no strings attached. Was one a clear member of that alliance said, yes, Quebec may be able to withdraw, but the minister doesn't seem to agree. Who is telling the truth? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the reality is that there are still too many Canadians throughout the country who are facing impossible choices. They're having to decide between paying for groceries or medication that they need. We will be there to ensure that people throughout the country can pay for medication. We will work with the provinces, including Quebec, to ensure that we cover the medications Canadians need. Canadians may not have that service, but Quebecers, yes, they do. That's why we want to be able to withdraw with full compensation. Should Liberals and NDP have gotten their stories aligned before speaking publicly? They don't. The left hand doesn't seem to know what the right hand is doing. The Prime Minister has given us such a clear answer. So, as my friend for Richmond off Baskin would say, yes or no, will Quebec be able to withdraw with full compensation? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, throughout the country, including Quebec, people are facing gaps in their Medicare. That's why we will be there to work closely with the provinces, hand in hand, to ensure that people can pay for their medication throughout the country. We will always be there to work constructively with the provinces, always with the goal of offering coverage to all Canadians.
Wait, can you give me a charger, please?
Huh?
Can you give me another charger, please? Like any other charger?
I don't really need the one.
What?
I don't need the one you gave me.
But why don't we have any other chargers?
Well, the other one's gonna take like 12 hours to charge it. Want that?
All of them?
Yeah, there's only one other one left. I gave you my Samsung Cube at some point, and it was plugged there. Where did that go? What was I supposed to say? Oh yeah, the Netflix. So Netflix made it so it's only one household. If we don't have the same IP, we cannot be on the.
But it's supposed to be that when you're going other places, if you're on the bus.
But it's a household. I don't know. I can't access it.
But I pay for 2 accounts. Awesome. I waste my time on more shit instead of fucking making food. This is awesome. Oh my god. Like, I did enter a valid email, you fuckface. Control access to this account. View the most recently active devices. Manage active devices. Okay. Okay, honestly. What? Oh, what? That's fucking stupid. Viewing preferences.
It is really windy outside.
This is so stupid.
What? About this place?
Extra members. A Netflix account is meant to be shared by people who live together in one household. People who are not in your household will need to use their own account to watch Netflix. Account owners can buy an extra member slot, which is what I already had.
Because we need to live with him under the same IP address.
But that doesn't make sense.
But it's
because I'm already paying for it.
Yeah, but it protects them from you sharing your account with someone that doesn't live with you.
But what's the matter if I'm still paying for it?
So now you're just gonna have to delete one of the profile on his account, and we have to get her out. It's stupid. I don't. Hey, we haven't had a story yet for a while.
Share Netflix with someone who doesn't live with you. That's what I have. The account owner will need to purchase extra member slot to invite extra member to an extra. Oh my god! The extra member must be activated at the same in the same country where the extra members cannot be added to Netflix included. Packages, third period bailouts? What? Okay, so it's just if Dom's not watching it right now, I can go on. That's not fair. That's not right. I'm paying for two accounts technically.
You want to watch it on your phone?
That's
you have to
wrong.
update your household to your phone while you go on the bus and shit.
Okay, so no, you should be able to go on. Guys, let's go back to home. This is such a stupid fucking setup website. Account. Standard. Control access. Transfer profile, viewing activity ratings. Maybe you can do this.
What? Well, I mean, don't undo it for Don. He's gonna call you again and complain.
I don't give a shit. No, I'm gonna fucking call him. Because I'm paying for it. It's like, look. Blah, blah, blah. Extra member slot. Where was it? Either way, it says the extra member slot can be on a different, it could be at a different address. Standard premium plan can add extra member by using extra member slot. Like, I have it. I pay for extra for it.
Well, then he's using MAD instead of using Dom.
And the phone is good. Come on.
It's not important right now, really. I mean,
Well, take my computer. You can look at it. Because, like, where I was just... Where I'm, in my account... It has the two, but, like... it's got, like, a bunch of shit that I have to go through. I don't feel like doing it.
okay.
Or, like, I just want to make food. Fuck. But if you look at the... No, not that one. Oh, well. 2 devices. But if you look at the long thing, it says on 2 different places. Wait, no. That was almost terrible. Oh my god, can you please? Man, look, these are all the places I'm logged in at.
Okay, wait.
You take it. I want to do this. Hey! That's on YouTube. It's not on Apple. Fucking temperature just dropped.
Hey,
Holy
baby.
shit, thank you.
You want to close the door?
Yeah, please. The temperature's dropped immensely.
Yeah. Oh, it's hail now.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Woo!
I think you're going anywhere.
CIA bases inside Ukraine and have been for the last 10 years, and they've been waging a shadow war on Russia from within Ukraine, and essentially deep state interests have been in control of Ukraine for the last 10 years, which is old since that 2014 coup, which we've been talking about in independent media, but they've not been talking about in legacy media.
PC Chrome web browser, current device.
Exacerbating these conditions and the escalation of conflicts between Russia and Ukraine. So why are the New York Times telling us now that there are CIA bases in Ukraine and probably biolabs and all those sorts of things that we've been discussing in these spaces for a while, and of course called conspiracy theorists for discussing? It's evidently true. So what's the agenda of the legacy media? Is it as simple as ensuring the funding can continue? And is it clear now that the legacy media are starting to acknowledge that you cannot completely suppress truth? You can employ agencies like Logic VAI, you
make you another coffee?
Please.
With whipped cream.
Whip cream.
They told you pretty repetitively and with absolute determination that this was an unprovoked war. But because of their odd, peculiar amnesia about times, you may have forgotten that, but they did do that. Have a look.
Russian military has begun a brutal assault on the people of Ukraine. Without provocation, without justification, on Russia's unprovoked and unjustified attack on Ukraine.
I don't.
Because that doesn't, honestly, that would not make sense.
Because look, it says extra member and profile and parental control. So you got two profiles on their one membership.
Because when they changed it initially, it was just Dom. It was just Dom on the account, and then I think the kids one, but that's a limited account. Like it's default, comes with every Netflix, I think.
Invite an extra member, $7.99 a month. Their own account and password, existing profile or a new one. All of Netflix on one at the time. Okay, we don't want that. Plan detail.
But the amount of people who move out of their parents' place and their parents still pay their bills, that doesn't make sense. Like,
Has launched a horrific, unprovoked attack on their country. That image, so full of pointless and lies, is essentially an artwork at this point. These masks don't work. We know they don't work. This war is
See, that's it. That's where they mislead you. That's what you got. $16.49.
you should be able to extend it if there should be more.
Yeah, but it says great video quality, whatever. Watch out free on phone, tablet, computer, or TV. Download on 2 devices under one membership.
No, I'm telling you, there's another part where there's more than that. I'm telling you.
Because it would be that plus $7.99. So where's the bill?
That's what he gave me shit for.
Billing detail.
That's what he gave me shit for. He was like, oh, you put it up there. I noticed that it was more expensive.
Putin chose this war. I'm really looking forward to seeing the sign language lady have to retract all of that. Okay, let's get into some analysis. Why the New York Times have chosen
Look,
this
baby.
moment to see the story.
$16.49 plus the tax. It's at most $20. It would have to be $7.99 on top of that to have the other membership on top of your thing. So he's not paying for another member. That's what I'm saying.
But the count, I did it. I'm the one who did it.
Well,
That's not like the old bill. That's the most recent ones. I did this like 2 years ago. It went from like $14 to $20.
that's last month. The other month before. The membership is not there. I'm telling you, it's not in the bill. It's not being paid for, so we don't have another membership for another also.
Entirely in terms of the intentions and psychology.
I don't want to be a pain or a
Russian President Vladimir Putin. Of course, that's why there was so much hysteria about the now famous Tucker Carlson interview, because then you can watch him with your own eyes and you can make your own evaluations about Russian propaganda versus US propaganda, and you can make decisions about your own scholars and your own family and your own military and your own community and your own nation. But they don't want you making any of those calculations. However, on the weekend of the second anniversary of the war, the New York Times has published a lengthy article. The Russian invasion of Ukraine on February 24th, 2022 was instigated by a systematic and widespread campaign of military intelligence aggression by the United States. We can't make this content without your love and support and without the support of our sponsors, who we always select on the basis of a Have you noticed that recently clusters of respiratory illnesses in northern China and what's been referred to as white lung syndrome in the United States are scattered across the headlines? This hashtag white lung. They're drawing attention, I believe, to the importance of being prepared for medical emergencies. With close to 90% of pharmaceuticals in the US being produced outside of the country, what will happen when the inevitable next global crisis strikes? Countries will clamp down on exports. They'll stockpile. The price of drugs will rise, and the pharmacy shelves in America, they say, well, the Wellness Company's medical emergency kit has got you covered for times like this. The Wellness Company is home to Dr. Peter McCulloch and Dr. Drew Pinsky. They've both been guests on our show. They're truth-telling doctors who are empowering you to take control of your health. 40% of Americans say they would avoid a doctor or hospital unless it was a catastrophic situation. The Wellness Company's medical emergency kit provides a solution. This handy little kit includes 8 potentially life-saving medications for you, along with a guidebook for safe use, emergency antibiotics, antivirals, and antiparasitics to keep you and your family safe in the face of natural disasters, supply chain shortages, or medical emergencies like white lung or COVID. Go to twc.health/brand and grab your medical emergency kit right now. That's twc.health/brand. Code brand saves you 10% at checkout. So if you use the code brand, you'll get 10% off. Don't wait until it's too late. Take control of your health with the Wellness Company's medical emergency kit. Thank you. Now, let's get into this. The article details long-standing Central Intelligence Agency, CIA of course, operations in Ukraine, in which the agency sponsored and built up the Ukrainian Military Intelligence Agency, HER, using it as a weapon of spying, assassinations and other provocations directed against Russia for more than a decade. Why are the New York Times writing this piece now? Why are the New York Times, which are a mouthpiece and an amplifier of the establishment agenda, choosing this moment to reveal that the CIA did indeed have bases and assets and engage in provocative activity inside Ukraine, which means that it can't any longer be referred to as an unprovoked attack. A provoked attack, that doesn't mean that, that the Kremlin is Disneyland and that Putin's a great guy or that Ukrainian people aren't being brutalized. It just means that we have to have an adult conversation rather than propaganda. The Times writes, towards the end of 2021, according to a senior European official, Mr. Putin was weighing whether to launch his full-scale invasion when he met with the head of one of Russia's main spy services, who told him that the CIA, together with Britain's MI6, were controlling Ukraine and turning it into a beachhead for operations against Moscow. Does that make sense to you? The idea that British and American intelligence agencies essentially had control of Ukraine? Does that sort of ring a bell of truth somewhere in your belly? Or do you think that Zelensky is some sort of military genius, come activist campaigner who is Churchill-like leading the charge against Russia, the indefatigable yet evil enemy? Or do you reckon that what happens is countries like the United States and the UK puppet various nations in order to either win resource or strategic global wars to fulfill an agenda where it wouldn't be popular to go to face-to-face good old-fashioned gloves-off wars with Russia and China, and much like the wars that took place in Afghanistan and basically all of the wars that have happened since the end of the Second World War, proxy conflicts are being fought for military-industrial complex reasons. Who's funding this stuff? Am I paying for this war? Is this unwinnable? Hey! Nuclear superpower? So that those questions are all sort of lost in the miasma of total lies, the New York Times et al. Propagandize us with images of brutality and suffering in Ukraine, which we should of course be aware of and doing everything on, and get a bunch of funding for Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman and Boeing. The Times report demonstrates that this Russian intelligence assessment was absolutely true. For more than a decade, dating back to 2014, the CIA was building up, training and arming Ukrainian intelligence and paramilitary forces for engaging in assassinations and other provocations against pro-Russian forces in eastern Ukraine, against Russian forces in Crimea, and across the border into Russia. So, sort of like there's been a war going on.
Oh, you have no idea.
Anyway, all that's really happened is they've just reframed
I'm
what's
more happy that
happening
you
and
don't do
increased funding. In a critical passage, the Times writes, as the partnership deepened after 2016, the Ukrainians became impatient with undue caution and began staging assassinations and other lethal operations which violated the terms the White House thought the Ukrainians had agreed to. Infuriated, officials in Washington threatened to cut off support, but they never did. In other words, the Ukrainian paramilitary forces, armed, funded, and led by the United States and NATO, were systematically assassinating forces supporting close relations with Russia. Ukraine have their own autonomy, they have their own dignity, and of course they have their own sovereignty. The fact that they have their own Russia, the fact that they took advantage of an opportunity to escalate tensions, knowing they were backed by a military superpower, is hardly surprising, but it is concerning because it's led to this conflict. But I suppose ultimately the United States elite have an agenda to drain and destabilize Russia. And don't you imagine that the increasing hostility in the South Pacific are about draining and destabilizing China? It's becoming increasingly clear that the country of America is one thing, you people, your culture, your country, your beliefs, your values, your Christianity, your tolerance of other religions,
all of that stuff is there down here. Then over here are this set of interests controlling, to some degree or another, both political parties and ensuring that they can maintain the forever wars that are their lifeblood, but sadly the death of literally every other territory in the world and a good many of your own citizens if this mentality continues much longer. The newspapers account begins with the May coup in February 2014, the right-wing neo-Nazi forces backed by the US and European Union overthrew a pro-Russian president and installed a pro-imperialist regime headed by the billionaire Petro Poroshenko. In a way, there could have been an entirely different trajectory, couldn't there? There could have been sort of an easier, still somewhat tense relationship between Russia and Ukraine. Couldn't really involve the United States, therefore didn't require siloing of weapons that were now no longer needed in Afghanistan into this new territory. A new paradigm was possible, and it seems like it was prevented. Furthermore, neo-Nazi, right-wing, I mean, if our culture is defining itself by one thing, it is opposition to all of these bloody right-wing fascists. I mean, there's barely a mainstream media news program ends about some new person being called a neo-Nazi or a right-wing fascist. People come out and tell you, I'm a neo-Nazi, I'm a new one. Now, can I have some money to go to war against other people? Yes, you can, because we don't care about anything except our own agenda. And yet, we will talk about how much we hate Nazis, but if someone like Off the News, who wears a tie, who's basically a Christian, doesn't think about race that much, so even America, they're American. This coup was the culmination of 2 decades of imperialist inroads into the former Soviet bloc, with the expansion of NATO to include virtually all of Eastern Europe in violation of pledges made to the leaders of the former Soviet Union. The Times is silent on this earlier history, as well as on the role of the CIA in the Maidan events. Why are they silent on those important facts? Maidan set the stage for a massive escalation of the CIA intervention, as detailed in the Times report. The intelligence agency played a central role in fueling conflict between Ukraine and Russia, first as a low-level war against pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine, then as a full-scale war after the Russian invasion in February 2022. 3 US administrations were involved, first Obama, then Trump, now Biden. I'm sure you know by now that what I suppose that indicates is that whoever you vote for, when it comes to significant issues like perpetuating forever wars, you don't really have the right to vote. That's why independent candidates like Robert Kennedy, who say they will end these wars, and I pray they do that, all of these wars. According to the Times account, CIA operations included not only widespread spying, but assisting direct provocation like the assassination of pro-Russian politicians in eastern Ukraine and paramilitary attacks on Russian forces in Crimea. The Times reported that a Ukrainian leader, the 5th Directorate, was tasked with conducting assassinations, including one in 2016. The Times writes, a mysterious explosion in the Russian-occupied city of Donetsk in eastern Ukraine ripped through an elevator carrying a senior Russian separatist commander named Arsen Pavlov, known by his nom de guerre, Motorola. What? After the phones?
So in the end, it was television that killed him. Yeah, very good, that. You look actually for knowing something.
The CIA soon learned that the assassins were members of the 5th Directorate, the spy group that received CIA training. Ukraine's domestic intelligence agency had even handed out commemorative patches to those involved, each one stitched with the word lift, the British term for an elevator. As long as you're all having fun, guys, now in this massive, expensive, mad war that you keep lying about and simplifying so you can keep funding it, people say, oh, it's really terrible this is happening. Here, have a patch with lift because we blew out that person, didn't we, in an elevator, that was all. You guys called it a lift? We got so much in common. Why don't we bomb some real countries? Yeah, okay then, old chap, cheers. The report describes another such operation. A team of Ukrainian agents set up an unmanned shoulder-fired rocket launcher in a building in the occupied territories. It was directly across from the office of a rebel commander named Mikhail Torchtik, better known as GV. Using a remote trigger, they fired the launcher as soon as GV entered his office, killing him, according to US and Ukrainian officials. It's quite provocative, isn't it? Like, it's not unprovocative. Anything that happens after that. Again, like Putin, illegal war, terrible, children dying, buildings destroyed,
No, the
tragedy,
rape
devastation.
story is the decapitated babies that were raped.
Like Putin,
And apparently it was a lady who
war, the Ukrainian hers extended these assassination operations
like
to the whole territory of Russia. Again, that's pretty provocative, including the killing of Daria Dugina, a leading pro-Putin polemicist in the Russian media and Russian government and military officials. It seems like designed to irritate him into a bellicose state.
Don't know what's going on. You're only being raped.
Yeah, they've been alive long enough to give shit. They fucking make another one, whatever.
Ukrainian allies, very useful in
Yeah, but like
collecting
it's a baby.
data
It's a
on
fucking
Russian
baby.
military and intelligence intelligence activity
Like,
so much that
a
the Herd
toddler,
itself
I'd be
could not
upset.
process it and had to
Like,
forward the raw data to CIA
talking about a
headquarters in
baby.
Langley, Virginia for analysis. An earlier less detailed report on this intelligence collaboration in the Washington Post cited Ukrainian
People who have, like,
intelligence officials'
consciousness,
estimate that
and who are well aware of their
250,000 to
surroundings,
300,000 Russian
and their
military
legs are being
intelligence
blown off.
messages were being collected each day.
That's what I feel
They were
bad for.
spying on Russia to an extraordinary degree, more funding, more
Well,
spying,
there was like a
more
little girl
transmission,
who was
more
hanging on the outside of
provocation.
the building and she had her
again,
legs
we
ripped
just
off.
watched the news, unprovoked.
And they
You
just
spied on
tore
us,
off the
Reggie.
fucking
Yeah.
front
Did you
building.
blow up a geezer
And
who
she
was
was
really
like,
nice
her
about
legs,
all of this?
with
Yeah.
no legs.
Did you get loads of badges done celebrating the
Yeah,
brutal
well,
assassination of
with no
someone?
legs, I'd rather die,
We didn't do
honestly.
that, yeah.
Like that lady that her boyfriend stabbed her, tried to
This
stab her.
data was not just related to Ukraine, but concerned Russian intelligence activity all over
Well,
the
that's
world.
like
Long
not
before the
illegal
Russian
at all.
invasion, the CIA was seeking to broaden its attack on Moscow. The Times reports the relationship with the Ukrainian Herd was so successful that the CIA wanted to replicate it with other European intelligence
But is he
services
like
that
my
share the focus
grandfather-in-law?
in counter Russia. So they wanted to establish
Oh,
it everywhere. A bit like, I suppose, Russia's concern with Ukraine with NATO, then other border countries would join NATO, and they'd have secret CIA spying bases in it where they would engage in provocative activity and spying missions in an attempt, it seems to me at least, to create one global government ultimately controlled by the interests that currently control the United States, the biggest economy and most powerful nation on earth, replicate that everywhere, and the only things that are powerful enough to prevent that at the moment are Russia and China, so let's crack on and destroy them. Is that basically what's happening? The head of Russia House, the CIA department overseeing operations against Russia, organised a secret meeting at The Hague. There, representatives from the CIA, Britain's MI6, the HER, the Dutch Service, a critical intelligence ally, and other agencies agreed to start pulling together more of their intelligence on Russia. Again, provocation. The result was a secret coalition against Russia, and the Ukrainians were vital members of it. All these activities occurred well before the Russian invasion of February 2022, not to mention the 2014 coup and placing what sounds like a puppet government that was ultimately being controlled by deep state interests. I don't know what provocation could be, if not that. That's some of the most provocative stuff I've ever heard. The outbreak of full-scale war led to even more direct CIA engagement in Ukraine. CIA agents were the only Americans not covered by the initial evacuation of US government personnel from Ukraine, removing only to Western Ukraine. They continually briefed the Ukrainians on Russian military plans, including precise details of operations as they were unfolding. This is just is and has always been a proxy war. The nomination of Russia's invasion of Ukraine as the start date seems like the type of narrativization that's favourable to the interests engaged in these years of provocation after sponsoring a coup and insisting that Ukraine join NATO. Actions that seem designed to provoke Russia. So
sorry, I'm
loads of Ukrainian people causing all that decimation and destruction and all of that criminal and illegal activity. It's because of all of this stuff, and because temporarily Ukrainian interests with those interests, they're a convenient conduit for the expression of the power of the establishment. And when they're no longer a convenient conduit, they will be pretty mercilessly dispatched, I'd guess. According to the Times, within weeks the CIA had returned to Kiev, and the agency sent in scores of new officers to help Ukrainians. A senior US official said of the CIA's sizable presence, are they pulling triggers? No. Are they helping with targeting? Absolutely. Okay, so aim the gun there. Now, are you able to pull that trigger yourself? Well,
That's what I mean. Like they eat what's inside down.
now that ain't it there. Well done, that's good. Any assistance we can give you in this war,
Oh,
we're not
first I
involved
saw
with. You
fucking
just ask.
Rotten
We have some
food,
more
like
money,
the gross
of course
is
you can.
more the dog
Some of the CIA officers
Sarah,
were deployed to
my friend
Ukrainian
Sarah,
bases. They reviewed lists of potential Russian targets that the Ukrainians were preparing to strike, comparing the information the Ukrainians had with
And one
US
day they were like,
intelligence
hey,
to
we're gonna
ensure
stop
that it
the
was
butcher.
accurate. In
We're
other
supposed
words,
to
the
butcher, and
CIA
it
was
comes
helping
out with,
direct
like,
the
brown
war,
paper
making the
bag.
US government a
I was
full
like,
participant,
"Just
a
like
co-belligerent
like,
in a
"Oh, yeah."
war
Like,
with nuclear-armed Russia, despite Biden's claim that the
I was
United
like,
States was only aiding Ukraine from afar.
fucking
And all of this without the American people having the slightest next time I forget that vital detail.
I
that
kind of want to
America's
see what,
meant to
like,
be
what your
your
dog's
country
doing.
was established on those principles.
Right
And I
there.
really now see more clearly than ever, Mike Benz, the
Yeah,
expert in
so,
deep
yeah.
state activities analysis, that went up. So we have to
And
protect
she
democracy.
just
What
literally,
they mean are a
tossed
set
it
of
to the dog, and
institutions
the
that
dog was
preserve
like,
oligarchical power, rather than the
fucking,
electoral
no,
process by which ordinary people go, I think I'd like to not be in a nuclear apocalypse. But that kind of democracy isn't happening, is it? The Times account also provides an inadvertent indictment of American media, as he writes, the details of this intelligence partnership, many of which have been disclosed by the New York Times for the first time, have been a closely guarded secret for a decade. It's really not like it's telling you, here's the inside scoop. Taylor Swift's new beauty secrets are avocado and incubus. Not that it's like we've been using your money to provoke a nuclear superpower into a war that we've been telling you that it was an unprovoked war. Oh my God, no wonder you look so young and fresh. This is propaganda and lying.
Yeah, that's like
no
Sarah's
doubt the New York
fucking
Times are
stupid
only
ass
revealing this
dog,
now
like-
because it's convenient to another agenda
dumb, you
that we'll
fucking
be revealing
idiot.
later in this
Fucking
brilliant article. This admission means that these
You
secrets
know
are
my dog
closely
is
guarded
like,
by the Times
this is
itself.
not
So all
100%,
the
like,
time,
he looks-
hey,
he
listen,
turns
please
around
don't
back
tell
and
people
forth,
there have
goes
been no clinical
sometimes,
trials
like,
on this
dude, I
product.
can't
Just
tell
tell
people.
them
I'm like,
that if they
I
don't
know.
use this
And
product,
I'm like,
it's
well,
irresponsible
that's,
to use
but
old
it's
people.
just 'cause
You
this
got
is-
it, boss! As former Bill Keller once observed, freedom of the press means freedom not to
So is that the
publish.
storm
And
that's
that's a
over?
freedom we exercise with some regularity,
storm that's over?
particularly, we might add, when it comes to the crimes of US imperialism. The Times article is not so much an exposure as a controlled release of information. Yeah, that's what I figured. We've started to spot that now. As independent media becomes more
I have a
robust
plate,
and yet more agile, they have to, at points, recognise, look, do you know what? People can no longer be expected to believe this was an entirely unprovoked attack. There's people going on Joe Rogan, there's Bobby Kennedy out there, people are all the time saying, wait a minute, what about NATO? What about that agreement between Gorbachev and Reagan? Oh, well, let's just say whataboutism is the thing. Whataboutism? Just shut up! You're helping Trump! But in the end, we just found out too much cumulative and aggregated information. So, in order to a degree, keep a slither of credibility, they're sort of acknowledging, okay, yeah, we provoked this war, we've known about it for ages, and the deep state's been inside Ukraine for ages. But also, there's another agenda to do with getting Republicans to support the ongoing funding of this war rather than withdrawing the funding.
That's what's happening to the big
The US
story
newspaper
now.
Record reports that the two authors of the piece, Adam Entus and Michael Schwartz,
You
conducted
figure
more
since
than
they
200
slam
interviews
so
with
hard
current
and
and
they
former
close so
officials
fucking
in
hard,
Ukraine.
they
Elsewhere in
still-
the these activities
No,
could hardly
no,
take place without the knowledge,
Yeah.
permission, and even encouragement of the
concrete.
CIA, as well as the Zelensky
our doorstep
regime
has
and
been
Ukrainian
redone,
intelligence.
when I was
Wow, as we've been
Well,
saying
she's
for some
going
time, the
to
legacy
put a
media
second
works in
door
conjunction
on
with
the
the
inside.
establishment and deep state to maintain a particular reality that we can all be manipulated into believing in so that our behaviour can be controlled so that we can be shut down. This is a brilliant, perfect, beautiful example of that. In the meantime, a real journalist, Julian Assange, is awaiting the decision on his final appeal against extradition to the United States, where he faces 175 years in prison.
Well,
Where he
they were
death
doing
sentence.
the thing
The
where they
crime
all
of Assange
signed
and
outside
WikiLeaks,
the
which Assange
jail
founded, is that they did
or
not
the
obey the
courtroom,
rules of bourgeois
and they were
journalism
waiting,
and did not seek
like,
the permission
all
of
the
the military
streets
intelligence
were
authorities
really
before
live.
publishing their
It was like,
revelations
it's a
about
different
US war
time
crimes
zone.
in Iraq and
Yeah.
Afghanistan. The efforts of the US State Department to subvert and
like, they
manipulate
were
governments and the
making it
spying
like as if it
activities
was
of
like
the
in
CIA
the
and
day
National
when
Security
I was watching
Agency.
it,
In short,
live,
he
like,
released
live.
information that was
It's like
favourable
recording
to
and
what you
put
might
on a
call
live
the
stream.
electorate or the citizens or the subjects or the people of nations like yours and of mine, in order that we might more discerningly regard
I just can't
ourselves
imagine,
as
like,
including
why
the
you're
legacy
going
media
to do
that lies to
that.
us. And what
Same
happens to
like
people like that
scheduling your
is
lives
what's
to
happened to
air
Julian Assange. But there are other
afterwards, and it's just,
examples
like,
of
already
how the establishment
uploaded.
behaves if
Because,
you
like,
act against their interests. The
encoder
exposure of a decade of CIA operations in Ukraine, clearly at the request of the agency itself, appears to be linked to the ongoing conflict within the US ruling elite over what policy to adopt in that war in the wake of the debacle suffered by the Zelensky regime in last year's offensive, which
I don't
gained
know. I
little
saw
and suffered
the
colossal
like
losses.
G7
Congressional
meeting in
Republicans have blocked
Hiroshima.
further military and financial aid to
Man,
Ukraine,
that was
effectively declaring
awkward
that
as
the US must
fuck.
cut its losses there and
Like,
concentrate on the
everybody
main
who's in the
enemy, China.
audience is, like,
Concentrate on
super
this?
clearly very
No,
uncomfortable,
different
and it's
enemy.
like the
Wow. So
prime
this isn't
president.
being done in order to, all the news that spit the press. This is like all the propaganda that's spit to use to manipulate ongoing forever war so that we can keep the offices open and the lights on. Well, we
Yeah,
can
but what
face
he
all
said
the
was
darkness.
really
This
nice.
is the most
Like, it was
important
very
paragraph.
cool.
I
It was
think
like,
in
I think
case
it's
you listen to
super
this, then you will
important
understand
that we
exactly what's
acknowledge
going on.
where we
You
are
can
now,
use this
and-
to argue
what
about
happened
it.
here.
Propaganda.
And
By
like,
reporting the
there's
virtual
no
control
grudge.
of the
Like,
Ukrainian
we're not-
regime by the
we're not
US
fighting
military
or anything
intelligence
like that. It
apparatus, the
happened,
Times
it's
is
over and
seeking
done
to
with.
pressure
Well,
the Republicans
let's
to
not do that
support
again.
war
You're
funding.
fired,
It is
I'm
argued
asked
that this
for
money
it.
is not going to a foreign government in a foreign war, thousands
came
of
and
miles
bombed
from US
Pearl
borders,
Harbor.
but to a subcontractor of American imperialism
Because they
waging an
thought
American
that,
war
the
in which
empire
US
of America
personnel
was
are
bigger than
legally
the empire
and
of
doing
directly
Russia right now.
engaged, although
The
some
space
American
is Russia right now, where they were
personnel
like,
are deeply
yeah,
engaged
we're
in
gonna go and
opposing
fucking
these wars, as you
finally
remember
take
from the
take over
South
Russia.
Assimilation
Afghanistan, almost they said to me that Russia is the Nazis and the Russian war long time ago. They do some little
But, hey,
you know,
Why?
I mean, things that are modern military. Those Russia was there in the beginning of the 90s, fucking all these really guns to those Afghans. Well, you can go out by 1947. Where do you think those guns are from?
So the amount of times that Putin was like, I'm gonna do that, I really, it's basically like Putin just be like, please don't, please don't, please don't, I really don't want to do this, like, and then eventually he'd be like, okay, like, what was he supposed to do? Just let him, like, let his country get bombed? Like, are you serious? Like, but like, there were so many steps that led up to that point that he was like, I would not do that if I were you, and repeated many times.
Because the animals
lying and misleading information in order to ensure that the establishment agenda can be met, even when it's a bloody war.
Okay, I understand we're a polar bear. Let's use it like this. Mother Russia's a polar bear.
Similar
We're big.
policies when it comes to the
We need a lot of food.
We
We need a lot of resources. So people are like, hey, wait, stop. This is our resources. So we give us sanctions. So because we use the resources. So dude, stop ourselves from getting to our food. Stop ourselves from going to our places. To their hands. And now what they want from us is to get our claws. And we're out of the cloud and out of the claws. You know, we won't be any, we won't be.
Yeah, but his people follow him like.
Tyrannical global establishment that requires war to sustain.
That was missing.
No, Putin has like a very strong following base, and like people are like, yeah, because it's like Kim Jong Un, and he basically forces them, and it's like not really. They have like runway shows where it's Putin spits on everything, and like they all really love the person who country because he took them out of fucking poverty. Like when you like they used to be eating cabbage soup for like 2 meals a day, and that's all they would eat.
I asked the Irish guy about the cancer. It feels like your own dirt. I was like, that's exactly what the other guy said.
He didn't know that. Like there was like warehouses, like they're they look like those wood saunas that are like oval or like round shaped.
Those ones.
And they're enormous bars.
These are the ones I did the rooftop with. Kind of
That's
tarp.
very cool.
Yeah, I did those rooftop. It's like giant super fucking tarp that you put around those. Shield.
Well, apparently it's like giant warehouses of those, and the guy is like, I'm freaking out. I'm totally freaking out because they're saying that I have to throw all these like, and the piles to the fucking ceiling of the thing. Like, it must be like 30, 40 fucking feet high. Really, really tall.
Fixing
Fucking.
the inside of that was fucking scary because you're on those little ramps, and like those woods are old, and then you have to walk on the trust. Just you go through it, and it's so fucking. Whoa. It's like 60 feet high.
I believe that. Honestly, they're really, really big dome fucking built structures.
They
Like,
even store apples in BC.
yes.
Yeah. For a very fucking long time. Is that camouflage enough?
Oh, that's so good.
The coffee? I know, right?
Try it now. Try it now. It's so good. Oh my god.
What did you do different?
I microwaved it,
But mine was hot.
but mine was microwaved.
It tastes exactly the same. No, mine was better. Fucked it up. The microwave shit. That tastes exactly the same. What are you concerned about? Wow. Oh, all right. Some power.
That's what I've been hearing.
That? Power?
Lightning.
Oh, yeah.
It says it's thunderstorm.
Thunder. Thunder. Lightning and a thunder. Matt, Matt. Matt, 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 Matt.
You have a new white pants?
What?
I got new white pants.
What are you wearing?
Those are just
board.
Like working in a psych ward?
No, like admitted into psych ward?
No, you wear blue clothes, I think.
Oh, really?
Something like that. People, or not. I don't know. I never went to the psych ward, baby. Believe it or not.
I went to see my mom in the psych ward, but they wasn't admitted. They kind of do had to do with the confidence and all her holes.
What the fuck? What? The storm?
Yeah.
Where are you going?
Let's go to the barbecue one.
Oh, you're gonna do the barbecue with that storm, baby?
Huh, really coming down.
What?
Really coming down now.
Well, open the door, you'll know this.
Yeah, I don't need to open the door. See?
Oh, let me open the door. I can hear it through the wall. The wall, baby. The wall.
No.
They're still playing plates, man. Fucking intense. Did you get hit by a light?
Oh! Mom, it's so cold! Oh my god! Why did it get so cold all of a sudden?
All this food ice. Ice.
Like some delicious chuck rolls.
They're saying it's 6 degrees.
It's 6 degrees out with wind chill minus 14. Gonna be something like that.
I think you just broke my brain.
I think you just broke my brain. But isn't that the...
It literally says 14 feels like minus 11.
No. No.
Oh no, high of 14, low of minus 11 feels like 0. That's a plane.
Every time I'm waiting for the boom or the.
What the fuck is it?
Well, it's in the cloud, obviously. Obviously.
I can't see it at all. That's weird.
And the rain creates a barrier. What's going on, baby?
It's the same.
Maybe people are going to be speaking English or other languages and not the language that you lived growing up in your hometown.
So what?
Because they're not listening to the hometown radio station any longer. They're more
Because there isn't one, or you get banned.
My hometown is here. And I'm still here.
I was born in Quebec City. I'm from my parents both were born in Montreal. My dad is from, although an English last name, a family that's both French and English. So people want to speak French. People want to have the opportunity to speak French. Even English people want to have the opportunity to speak French. In a place like Quebec City, the Francophone population is, I think, 97%.
Yeah.
So this is utter nonsense what they're pursuing here. It's bad.
But why are you guys now saying this?
It's bad. It's bad public policy.
Because that's your business now. But we've all been fucking dealing with it. Like,
And he's trying to create an issue that doesn't exist.
I don't want therapy
And frankly, blowing up in his face couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Okay, very good. Does anybody have any concerns right now that with what we're seeing with measles making a comeback here in our country? Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Anti-vaxxer sentiments are growing with Canadian parents apparently since 2019, despite the fact that the science hasn't gotten any better or hasn't gotten any different. And no matter how many times you listen to Joe Rogan jokes.
see? That fucking pop, pop, pop. I'm like, is that the funny, not funny? Is that what that is? Like, no. It's because all y'all shut the fuck up till right now. And it's been 60 years long. Oh, you guys being like, I don't know. It's crazy. Like, it's like, fuck off. You guys deserve all of this.
People who are compromised know they need a vaccine to help including parents for their children. So I think that's what we should focus on, dedicating those resources where they're needed most, whether it's for measles or COVID-19 in the school system, but those decisions to be made by the family, not by the school board or others.
Yeah, but
We have any thoughts?
like Gardasil, my parents didn't know about it. I watched the school one day and they said, go to the library, go get your vaccine. I'm like, what vaccine? I didn't know we were getting a vaccine today. And they said, do you want vagina cancer? I was like, no, I don't want vagina cancer. I think that's what fucked up my ovaries for the past 10 years. Did it settle down a bit?
Their kids were going to get vaccinated, and the courts always decided with public health and what the research said, and said those kids need to be vaccinated. But the government, the state, telling a mom that you have to have your kid receive chemotherapy. Your thoughts?
Maybe we will not wear the giant fuzzy jacket.
This is child abuse. Period. Full stop. I'm upset that this person only got 90 days. This idiot will cost their life, and the state had to intervene in order for this person to survive. This is an example of where we should put up foolishness, and we do. And one of the reasons why the anti-vaccine side is growing is.
And what do you need to gas you take the gas?
Have neglected their responsibility to do public awareness campaigns and to tell people
of the effectiveness of vaccines. So they're off the playing field for the last 2 years. The federal government, the provincial government.
Do you think those people are going to listen to the government or the media?
Let's look at it here. So when you got one side off the field and the other side Joe Rogan and everyone else is allowed to talk, guess what happens? You have an increase in measles and other things. So, I think governments need to get re-engaged on that. We need to do a better job of explaining the vaccine story, and we need to get on with it.
Okay, finally, Jill, apparently Cineplex has made almost $40 million from online booking fees, and that is now going to be a competition case. I'm going to say that as long as it's disclosed, I think everybody is buying movie tickets now via the app. You can still walk in the theater and probably get them. As long as it's disclosed, if it's a business that is on the ropes, like going to the movies, I don't have a problem with it. I like going to the movies, and if it's going to keep my theaters open, then here. Do you have any problem with it?
I don't. I think consumers don't either. The majority of consumers adding, I think it's the $1.50 to their ticket price, as long as they know about it. I don't think anyone would have an issue who want to go to the movie theater with paying that extra fee. But now the issue is Cineplex looks dishonest, and consumers will feel used when they read about this in the news and the case continues. People just want to know how much they're paying for their ticket when they go to the movie or when they go to a professional sports game. They just want to know how much it costs. It's very simple.
Jill, thank you very much for your time. Sorry about getting your name wrong numerous times. I gotta say, maybe a new high for me. Jill Wilson, partner at GW Group, and also Bob Richardson, who is a contributor here to the iHeart Talk Radio Network, senior counsel at National Public Relations. By the way, we'll go in depth on that Cineplex story and on surge pricing at Wendy's. They've backed away from that. But straight ahead, we'll hear from the whistleblower on the Facebook case when it comes to harms online with our friend Carmen Levy. He's next on the iHeart Talk Radio Network.
Now, an update from the CJ 8800 Traffic Center. Weather hampering the drive here this evening in pockets, including the red east and westbound. It is busy in both directions here from the Anjou interchange right up to the Carry Circle, to carry north into southbound. We hope to get some volume from pretty much around the Van Horn area up to the Carry Circle. Laval, not bad here inbound, outbound. The Ilmo Towards a little slow down in that area. The 20 east and westbound is moving well. South Shore spans are problem free. Bit of volume for the outbound La Fontaine as you approach on the 25 southbound. Then I remind you that when you insure your condo syndicate with good people, you'll be protected on every level. Beneva, Paris, it's worth it. Marty Lamar, CJ 8800 Traffic Center.
Who knows what the weather will have in store for your morning drive? We'll keep an eye on that, and the drive, and the yo-yo weather forecast. Should forest bathing be part of the high school curriculum? Dr. Vision 750. And Tony the Tiger ain't so great, not getting a lot of love on social media, but Tony Chapman is, Chatter the Patters, to discuss the cereal for dinner controversy. That's at 8:20. The Andrew Carter Morning Show. Join us 5 to 9.
If you have received notice of a rent increase, you do not have to accept it. Find out what your rights are. If you're moving to a new dwelling, start your search now. Affordable housing is hard to come by. Learn more at montreal.ca. A message from Ville de Montréal.
Wait, this is all included?
Yeah.
And this too?
That's right. All of it.
Okay, and this?
Yes, sir. Even this.
Oh, this cost a pretty penny.
Nope. $89.
Wow, only that?
Only that. Switch to Bell and get 500 internet and the best TV service with 10 channels of your choice, including sports networks and even Crave for only $89 a month. For details and to check availability, call 310 Bell. Bell, switching just got better.
Circumcision has proven health benefits, reducing the risks of STDs and other medical problems. At Circumcision Montreal, it's a quick, virtually painless procedure done under local anesthetic in a state-of-the-art sanitary clinic that guarantees your privacy as well as your health and safety. A special skin glue closure technique also ensures an improved cosmetic outcome. As with all medical procedures, there are risks involved. Please ask one of our doctors for risks and complications.
That'll work.
Doctor at circumcisionmontreal.ca.
Are you experiencing blurry vision, eye strain, or headaches from staring at screens all day? Are you using AMD? Protect
eyes with new Nordics Blueberry Strong. Blueberry Strong nourishes your eyes with lutein and concentrated wild Swedish blueberries with a superior concentration of color pigments and antioxidants, promoting healthy eyesight, better night vision, and less eye strain. That's why Blueberry Strong is Scandinavia's #1 selling supplement. Available at Shoppers Drug Mart, Walmart, Wawas, Shop Coutu, and London Drugs, or online at Amazon and newnordic.ca.
Everyone loves Italian food, and you can bring delicious and authentic Italian food home from Restaurant D-Man now. They've been serving the East End's best Italian dishes since 1971. Order your favorites for delivery or counter pickup, or better yet, load up your freezer with D-Man's restaurant quality frozen meals. D-Man's famous Montreal-style pizzas or lasagnas, pastas, sauces, and more to make dinner easy and delicious. Visit dmenda.com to see the full menu.
Why are you
today.
so loud?
Restaurant D-Menda, your new favorite Italian restaurant in St. Leonard.
Jesus. No. Where's this pencil? Why? There's a hole in the bottom of the barbecue.
Oh yeah.
So like all the flames were coming out the bottom. It's probably not ideal when you have a giant fucking thing of propane underneath.
That's quite something.
Well, I put a pan.
Okay.
I put one of the pans underneath.
No worries. We're not eating food.
Yay! I feel like I just put the plastic on these windows too,
Yeah.
but I guess winter's over.
I know.
There's much effort putting it up too.
Well, because at the beginning you didn't have the right heater thing, right?
Yeah. And because I wasn't really intending to put plastic on the windows. So, even like other stuff, baby, I love you.
I love you.
Want me to call Dom ask him if he's on Netflix?
No, I'm playing my game here.
Okay, because it's probably not even home, eh?
Yeah, but I don't wanna explain to him what it is.
But you don't have to explain to. I have to explain to.
Because it's like paying Netflix twice, but you got it half price if you're a member. You really got everybody addicted to it, and then boom, they change their service, so we gotta have.
No, I think it's just Canada. I think it's the CRTC making it mandatory. I think it's probably has to do with the regulations because they don't want multiple people to be in one identity. Like.
Yeah, that's it. Because they want to know who's watching what.
Yep.
Fuck,
Isn't it?
Big Brother, man.
I don't know. Like at least the fucking Nazis told you that, like, hey, we're coming after you.
At least the Chinese tells you if you do that, you'll be arrested.
Right?
Okay. Oh, you guys did that, and we think that you should be arrested for it. So we'll change the laws, and then when that's done, you'll be arrested for it. What? What's the deal?
Really not actually that bad. It's windy.
Yeah. Well, I guess the bigger the storm passes, the hell.
Well, they said point something. I think it said millimeter.
That's not a lot.
I basically does it. I mean, it evaporates before it hits the ground.
Not bad. Not bad. It's like I'm done in the dark. I love how much they like fucking were like prepare everybody. Ice storm. It's like, okay, that's it. Guess that makes up for the entire winter not happening. Apparently, people are heartbroken about it. Childhood's been taken away. Ah! That was funny. So funny, I like literally lost track of what I was just doing.
Marking Black History Month throughout the month of February. News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
If cold weather makes starting your vehicle more difficult, visit a Spinelli dealership for a battery diagnosis.
Avoid impossible cold weather starts because of an old battery. Schedule an appointment at one of the Spinelli dealerships to get a battery condition diagnosis and a replacement with an original battery at the best market price.
Spinelli, the address of choice for all automotive services.
For breakfast, do you prefer something classic or adventurous? Because at Cora, we believe a little more rebellious. That's why we're introducing the Breakfast Rebel Festival. 3 deliciously
Shut the fuck up. Martella?
At Cora's Breakfast.
Okay, we're done. That was fast. Get it? It was quick.
Some delicious chuck rolls burn ends. Gonna be using neither to track our temps. A little mayo as a binder. You can use whatever sweet seasoning you like. We're gonna be smoking these over apple.
examples. We're pointing at examples of as you know, to simplify this argument a little bit, you're looking at television, saying, I want to be on television. As you mentioned, Derek, the 5-year-old girl with the childhood wounds, and yet And then here we are, all of us participating in some degree or another, some willingly and knowingly, some accidentally, and this is why I'm trying to sort of excavate this so that we can bring it into our awareness. Is it possible for us to break this cycle? How can you celebrate peak performance? Can you help your children look at people on TV as examples? Because otherwise it's more difficult in an isolated world to find examples for our children, say, of greatness. Is it there's no one who is, or there may be fewer examples of people directly in contact with our kids and our families who are shining examples of what's possible with this one precious life. And so can we then point at all beyond this to the television, to the media for peak performance? Or are we just going to give our children, or I'm using children here as an example, but do we have lower bars? Do we have less vivid examples of what's possible with this one precious life because we're worried about exposing them to this cycle of narcissism? How do we break the cycle? How do we help them see greatness when greatness might not be near them? I have a philosophy that you can't be what you can't see.
Ugh.
So
that's fair.
That's fucking lame.
Yeah, I see where you're getting with that. So here's the thing. Media sadly exists to sell stuff. Right? If we think back to the 1950s model of television, we're going to put on a little story so we can sell refrigerators. Yes. But it's always about the refrigerators. It was never about the story. Okay? So in radio was similar. So media is a platform that still somebody is underwriting this, and they're going to get theirs. Okay? And so as a result, that which is going to show up the most prominently and the most loudly and the most vociferously in media is that which is going to get the most eyes and subsequently the most money. And we are at a time where shameless, outlandish, cruel, attention-seeking, ridiculous behavior is what's attracting eyes. It's a fact.
For sure.
Okay?
Negativity, bias, all sorts of human things.
All that stuff.
Yep.
Cruelty, negativity, polarization, mockery, inappropriateness, whatever it may be. None of this is role models for anybody. I don't care if they're kids or not. But that's what gets eyes. And so then you have this bigger issue of how do you put the eyes on to greatness? Well, then the society has to agree on what greatness is. Because by and large, narcissism is correlated with success when we're talking about grandiose narcissism. Narcissistic people make more money. They're overrepresented in leadership. They're more likely to secure a romantic partner. So many of the key metrics in our society link to narcissism. Now, they're not marathoners, they're sprinters. But they're noisy sprinters. And they can get a lot of eyes on them. And the fact is, Chase, most people don't want attention. They're willing to be quietly great. They're a great second grade teacher. They're a great mechanic. They're a great volunteer at a food bank. These are great people. And they're not in our, sort of in our public purview. Yeah. Part of it is like finding the diamonds in the sand kind of thing, because what's being put out in public often isn't that. But what it does mean is, as long as we're giving so much airtime and we're excusing so much bad behavior all the time, because the fact is, I don't care if you're a left-leaning, right-leaning, or centrist media or organization, the noisier, crazier a politician is, the more people are watching them. So this is no longer about the point of view of the media outlet. They're like, bring on a crazy politician because we're going to have people watching us. That's my point, is that they're still selling something. And so if a reasoned, empathic, compassionate, accountable, responsible, wise, thoughtful politician came around, it'd last 24 hours, if that, because it doesn't work. And that's what I'm saying, is that I do think there are great, when I say great, I mean, and it's not narcissistic, not antagonistic, good, present, attuned, empathic, kind, respectful, solid people out there they're great and they're doing great things. The way the world is organized now, it's all but impossible to get eyes on them. I'm telling you now, I'm someone who's trying to book gigs for books, and I get a lot of like, you're not big enough. You're not big enough. And I'm thinking to myself, if I launched a sex tape, which would actually be the greatest tragedy of our time, news fest, but if I did something outlandish, all of a sudden you're telling me I'd book one of these gigs for my book? That disgusts me.
Yeah.
And so its way to get out a message that's important, but as somebody who's been told way more times than yes because I'm not big enough, don't know what the answer is.
Give us a path out of this, because this paints a very worrisome picture for
It is a worrisome picture.
and I'm not afraid of worry, because the goal of worry is to create action, right? And if I've learned anything, that action starts with a handful of committed people. What's the saying? In fact, that's the only thing that has ever changed history. So let's just say you have our attention, right? For example, your most recent book that you mentioned, because you don't have a sex tape, but we need to get this out there.
And never will, thank you.
It's not you. Identifying and healing from narcissistic people. So as a culture, again, acknowledging that this is a spectrum, but by and large, we have to take action. And when we give unwillingly or unknowingly our attention to, I'll use your political example and any n number of other examples out there on the internet, we are actually fueling the exact thing that we do not want in our culture. So please, doctor, what's the path forward?
We have got to talk openly and honestly about what this is. So here's where it gets interesting, Chase, especially given what you talk about on this podcast. How do we separate the innovator from the innovation, right? Because we're in the cult of personality right now. We've got all these kinds of tech doodads, and I'm grateful for them because they make my life easier. They ruin some people's life for sure, but they make my life easier. And behind many of these innovations was a really rotten person in some cases, right? We do not need to lionize and lift up and celebrate and worship these people who've made these innovations. We can simply say this thing that was created, whether it be car or device or platform or whatever, was remarkable. And there was in that, but we don't have to hold that person up as a paragon of goodness. And that's what we keep doing. It's almost like we need to say, if you made this great thing, you got to be a great person. No, not necessarily. They had a great mind for one thing, and they did it well. But in the cult of personality we're trying to create, again, this whole persona narrative we're trying to create around things, and that's what's muddying the water. So I think, number one, they separate the innovation from the innovator. Thomas Alva Edison was apparently a real a-hole. If you read historical accounts, but thanks, Thomas, for the light bulb, but glad I wasn't married to you. And that's all I got, right? And so I think that it's the understanding that there is that difference there. Number two is to know what this thing is. We should be teaching this. I was just talking with someone recently about this idea of when I tried to say, listen, we should have a high school curriculum on narcissism and antagonism, and I was pushed back with over and over again. That's very negative, and we think that's kind of mean. And as long as we take that stance developmentally, kids need to be learning about sort of what is not okay in a behavioral repertoire. No. A lot of domestic abuse starts in adolescence. All domestic abusers are narcissistic. Okay, it's not some, it's all. And so being able to identify what's not acceptable, but in the 1970s, we got the whole idea of government needs to stay out of people's lives. It was a great way for the government to save money. But what it did was, it took away, if a kid has narcissistic parents, where the hell are they supposed to learn about this? School would have been a great place. But the school won't teach them, thinking we're ruining. And they should be taught in schools, however we can developmentally appropriately teach it. It should be taught to therapists. It should be taught to everybody. It should be taught to anyone in any field. I don't care if you're going into business, into law, into medicine, into airplane mechanic, hairdresser. I don't care what the hell you're going to do. You need to understand this, because these are going to be your clients. Going to be your bosses. These are going to be people who can make your professional life a living hell. We should be teaching people how to get into healthy relationships by creating this, by no longer Because right now we're in the age of sort of the narcissist bro. Like, I want to be like him because he's baller and he's got a car, he's got a Lambo. I don't care if he's a dick, like he gets the girl. If that's a trope and that's a viable mentality, and these people are being rewarded with billions of dollars and tons of societal power. I always say to people, listen, somebody has $1 billion, that's their billion. Let them go with God. Just don't marry them. You know, like if somebody is really successful at what they do, but they're cruel, admire from a distance, but don't get close to them. You might even want to think twice about working with them. And so it's that sense of, it's almost like I don't want to be Napoleon's friend, even if I could go back in time. I'm guessing Napoleon wasn't a good guy. Yeah. So we read about them in the books, but it doesn't mean we have to be with them or be like them. But what the pushback I've gotten from young college students for years when I was an academic is, because I taught a lot about narcissism in my classes, well, how are we supposed to be successful without being narcissistic? Right. And I think it's absolutely possible, and there's great research on empathic leadership and compassionate leadership, but it's harder because you play by the rules. And if you play by the rules, it's a lot harder to get to be the king of the mountain. So I think it's educational, Chase. I think we have to teach, and and not pathologize. That's not what I'm going for. Is we have to give people permission to call out bad behavior as bad behavior. Right now, our systems protect narcissistic people more than they protect public shame people who are harmed by them.
Maybe if you feel guilty and you're ashamed, maybe you're being an asshole.
A thread that I wanted to explore, and I think the question that your students asked is a question that was on my list of things to talk about, and so I'd like to pull on that thread just a bit more. You cited your own experience of being on TV as the wounded 5-year-old, and I think that what is of interest to me is, as someone who gives provides a platform for other people to speak, who have created innovation, who have who do stand out from their peers for excellence, achievement, or success. I've shared with you before we start recording, I'm on deadline on my book right now, and it deals a lot with the ability to, what's the relationship between success and fulfillment. I'd be lying if I didn't say that I have experienced some of the same things. I like to think of my life in 2 arcs, but that you shared about being a wounded 5-year-old who wanted to be on television. And I'm wondering so there's twofold to my question. One, is it possible to not just heal, but to transform in a second arc of your life? So that's question one. And then question two, is it possible to be, I guess this is an extension of the question that your students ask you, is it possible to be successful, fulfilled, and an example without being narcissistic?
Okay, so let's talk about the heal and transform in a second arc. 1,000% yes. Now, when you say that, I'm assuming you're referring to the person who was the wounded child. Yeah. And they heal and transform and reach outside of themselves. Absolutely, 1,000%. 1,000%. I work with, at this point, through some way, shape, or form, either in group format or in individual format, with thousands of people who survive narcissistic relationships. And while some people are definitely stymied for a lifetime, they're by far the vast minority. The large percentage of people, once they get it, once they're told they can get set free from it, that they don't need to forgive someone who harmed them, when you really take all the existing paradigms and say, no, you don't need to forgive someone who's a serial offender in your life. Hell no. You free them, and they can start to individuate and experience themselves as themselves rather than as a vessel that was basically pouring supply into a narcissistic person. Amazing things happen. I have seen survivors go on to write books and make films and to make music and to create art and to get doctorates and to go back to school and to actually wake up in the morning and feel like a functioning person. So absolutely, healing and transformation. We are living, breathing things. Cut off a tree keeps going even if you cut off a branch. Like nature always finds a way to keep healing and living, no matter what the species we are. That's what's remarkable about life. Now, to your point, can you be successful without being narcissistic? Absolutely yes. But I'm going to say that with an asterisk.
Yep.
It really depends on what that person's definition of success is. If that person's definition of success is grandiose by definition, I'm going to be the person who changes the this and the that, and I'm going to make all this money, and all these people are going to admire me. So it's entirely in this sort of grandiose, narcissistic, supply-oriented, look at me, aren't I great model. Then narcissism is going to help you succeed there. Narcissism works really well in a capitalistic economic structure because it's a competitive structure. Narcissistic people are built better for competition than people who have less of that quality. But that doesn't mean people cannot be successful. They absolutely can. But I will tell you, you'll see it gets a little bit frayed in the marketing.
Yeah.
Says me. I mean, listen, I'm a lot of things. I'm actually not narcissistic. I'd be the first to own it if I was. I can be abrupt. I'm introverted. I can sometimes be a little get angry at the world for not supporting me. So there's some of my dark traits. But beyond that, no, I'm very empathic. I'm compassionate. I'll own that. But I'll tell you, I can't market myself. I'm really bad at it. It's not my forte. And I look at other people and I'm really good at this. And so, it's not in my DNA, my emotional DNA as much. So is that holding me back from my full success? Absolutely. In the way the world runs, yes, it is.
Yeah.
And I've seen people write and do things that were, I don't even think that were compelling, and they knocked it out of the park. And when we go and do the deep dive, it's because they marketed the hell out of it. And so marketing is marketing is very easy for narcissistic people. They're very good at it. And since marketing is the core of what can create success for any product written large.
An attention economy, yeah.
They're going to do great. So, but really, it's that idea of what is success. Until you operationalize what the success word is, then it gets a little bit, tricky. But I have to say that I've seen many incredibly successful people who are not narcissistic. And I think that's we've all got our thing, but our thing, our quirk, our little bit that makes us a little more difficult maybe is not narcissism. Narcissism is a cake, and it's made up of a lot of ingredients. An egg is not a cake.
Two things. One, isn't it sort of, it's like a fish trying to understand what water is, it seems like, because it's everywhere. So it's like, it's, this is why this is a challenging topic when I was so excited to have you on the show, because it seems like it's everywhere. And I'm paranoid just having this conversation in a great way. Like, wow. I mentioned again, this book, I've been writing and doing a lot of self-reflection. And if this is like a fish, the relationship that a fish has with water, like you're in it, it's very difficult to sort of be aware of it. And then a parallel, similar analogy, if I'm a frog being slowly boiled, my goals and ambitions, maybe at some point were honest and holistic and in line with my values, and at some point the goalposts keep moving because of the water that I'm swimming in. Is it fair to say that the water is actually influencing me, the human, or is it I am this way, and boy, we need to do some healing? Because I feel like my personal ambition is to use me as an example in an attempt to be vulnerable here on the show. I originally wanted to be an artist and just to be able to, make work that was felt compelling and honest and authentic to me and share it. And boy, if I could have this living, sure, I don't not want nice things, but, my ambition, had some constraints to it. And I am aware that left the building at some point, and my wife, who is earnest, heartfelt, compassionate, kind, all of those things that I seek to be, it was only through her helping me understand that I was the frog being boiled. How do we?
My ambition. Yeah. Like you felt like your ambition got more and more and more unfettered.
dramatically, because as soon as you got a spoonful, then then you need a teaspoon, and then you need a tablespoon, and then you need a 5-gallon bucket. And before I do
I'm saying you need, not everyone, you did. And that's for you to understand what's the why of that.
But I felt it moving. I felt it moving. And so is this narcissism that is expanding because it's being rewarded on these platforms? Or is this a culture that is sort of pouring narcissism back into individuals?
You got to remember again what let me give you an example, and I'm going to answer your question specifically. I mentor a lot of people who want to enter the media as mental health folks, right? Whatever it might be, whether they want to be on talk shows or whatever the hell they want to do. And something I've heard probably at least a dozen people say to me is like, I want to be Oprah. And that's when I'm like, time out. All right, what is it? What I mean, Oprah's a human being, so you don't want to literally be her. So what is it you want? Okay? And, and it was that lack of intention. It was almost like, I want to be the last word on, I want to be beloved. I mean, when we think about the brand of someone like her, it's beloved. It was, when it was ahead of its time, but it was created by many people. I mean, it was a construction of very, very smart people created this at a point in time that was very different than today. But it's what is it? What do you want to be? Tell me. Because for some people, it's like, I think they wanted to be super famous, but in a savior kind of way, which is to me not a healthy want. Pull the strand out. Like, what is that thing? Like, they might say she was helping people. Okay, so now let's work with the helping people part. But for some people, it's like, I wanted to be that kind of like, savior, and that's not healthy. That to me that's too ephemeral, and it's not. And you're never going to get there, right? You're chasing your tail. So it comes to this piece of, in order to thrive in these spaces of getting a message out on a platform. Now, it used to be that the gatekeepers would stop most people from getting a message out. You had a handful of networks. They were run by people who wanted only one point of view, and most people weren't getting on there. And then YouTube came along and social media came along, everything changed. So there's so much noise out there right now. It's like a very, very, very busy, crowded town square. So you might just go over to the corner booth of the vegetables you like, and that's all you're hearing, and that's fine. But to rise above the din, there's a noise in ourselves that has to be created. So you're right. In a way, we're having to pedal faster because of the narcissistic world we're in, which is why more than ever in history, the work that humanistic psychologists and others have written, authentically, who are you? What are your values? What are you about? Who are you? The real who are you? Not what's your brand, not what's your narrative, not what your story is. Who are you? And that is a question most people aren't grappling with. I think a lot of people tell me what their brand is, but very few people can tell me who they are. And knowing that piece can help be an antidote to this narcissistic kind of world. But it also means that one's voice may not amplify, because for one's voice to amplify the way many people want it to in these media spaces, you kind of have to play their ground game. I've gotten so much advice on how to market, in this case, a book. And it's very interesting because some of the advice is pretty similar across people who are giving it, but it's all about amplification and making a lot of noise. And either you can do it or not, but we have personalities, we have natures, and some things work for us and some things don't. But it's I do think we're all pedaling faster because of what narcissism has done to the world. And I once had a client years and years ago who said to me, wanted to be famous. And this was actually so long ago that even YouTube was in its relative infancy and all that. Wanted to be like a TV star, a movie star. Want to be famous, want to be famous, want to be famous. And was trying to get to the core of the why of the famousness, because this desire caused him nothing but misery. And finally, it took us a long time to get there. It was beautiful and eloquent the way this person said it. They said, if I was famous, then I'd never be alone again. And they meant that both in the literal sense of, if you're famous and you have this entourage, right? People always want to be with you. You'd never be you're sitting at your phone on a Saturday night, which I don't think is true. I think there's plenty of famous people who are lonely. And that there would always be this world who knew who you were. So you wouldn't be alone because there were people who always attuned or attended to what you're about. So that idea that for him, It wasn't about famousness. It was about loneliness.
The book is It's Not You. We have, I think, done a little bit of work in today's show around identifying these characteristics, both in our culture and potentially in ourselves. I know there's some listeners right now going, man, I got this. The doctor has just shown me a few things about myself. I might need to go do some work. Let's talk about the healing part, because that's also in the subhead, right? Identifying and healing from this. So give us a path to healing. What are some of the things that we have to be doing?
Remember, there's people who are going to be listening to your show, given who listens and, who really are trying to be great and innovate and all of that, that might be saying, am I the narcissistic person? Is there anyone who's sitting there saying, am I the narcissistic person? I want you to know that's the best prognostic sign ever, because the vast majority of people who are narcissistic don't have the self-reflective capability to do that. They have to either just turn it off or not listen. Or
so if you're still listening, you're okay.
You're probably okay. I would say that but you shared a very interesting insight that you felt like your ambition was getting more and more unfettered, and you had a loving, empathic wife, partner, and she said, I love you, like, what's happening? And you were then able to receive that love and not just tell her to shut up, stop, you're getting in the way of my ambition, which is what a narcissistic person would do, but rather you looked to your loving life partner to say, she knows me, let me listen to this. That is not a narcissistic maneuver. So described with her, I'm like, that just sort of like, no. But you can see how a narcissistic person said, you're trying to stop me from growing. You are jealous of me. You want to hold me back. That's what that interaction would look like if your wife was sharing that with a narcissistic partner. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, and it makes me feel better about myself.
Yes. So again, I'm not going to pathologize ambition. I think ambition's a wonderful thing. It really, really is. And what happens is ambition, like everything else like in life, has to be calibrated. So you're right, ambition will go, 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 go. And then we need the people in our lives to say, hey, how about we just sit down and play some Scrabble, or you want to watch a movie? And because and when we love what we do, I'm a very ambitious person, and I get lost in it. And I do need sometimes the people around me who love me to say, slow down, sweetie. Like, we want to see you, and not snap at them and not get overly defensive. Narcissistic people will do that. So my book is really about the healing process of people who are in relationships with narcissistic people. And that might be an intimate relationship. And I think in the majority of cases of people who go into this, it is an intimate relationship. But it could be anything. It could be family of origin. It could be friends. It could be workplace. In the audiences that listen to this, I've met more than a few listeners. My business partner was narcissistic. And I'll tell you, a narcissistic business partner can destroy a person's decades. If you get into bed with the wrong person on that, it will harm you the way an intimate narcissistic relationship can, especially if it's a two-person operation. And so that the healing process from when you've been in any form of narcissistic relationship, it really starts with radical acceptance. And the key piece of radical acceptance is the narcissistic personality, the behaviors associated with it, the dynamics associated with it do not change. What you see is what you get. This, the way it is, this relationship, this is it. So you're going to make your decisions on the basis of what this is, not on the basis of what it could be, not on the basis of what it will be someday. This is it. It's almost like somebody saying, I built a house in Chicago and I'm hoping it's warm this winter. Like, you built a house in Chicago. It's going to be cold in the winter. Radical acceptance. There's no beach bathing suit version of February there. And so it's that and it is literally that. So it's that simplistic. That's what you've got here. And yet, in its simplicity, it's a very thorny construct, because the things that narcissistic folks do in relationships are hurtful and harmful and destabilizing and upsetting. And just because you radically accept, because most of us can't get out of all of these relationships. They might be parents, they might be siblings, they may be collaborators we have to continue working with, they may be marriages people can't get out of, whatever it is. You can radically accept what this is, but when they keep saying hurtful things to you, it's still going to hurt. Just radical acceptance around that. And once a person radically accepts, they go down a really painful rabbit hole of grief. It is because this is grief of the marriage someone hoped they have, the future they hoped they'd have, the parents their kids would have. They're giving up on all that. It's a loss of innocence. It's recognizing you were never going to have the childhood you wanted, that it left some permanent scars for you, that you were about to lose everything you ever worked on in this business. These are massive losses. But that hope is what often kept people going. It might get better, or maybe it's not that bad. And so the hope and almost the illusion or the not knowing and the lack of education meant that they sort of stay in their happy place, but the happy place was a delusion, and it doesn't work. And so education, radical acceptance, working through their grief, and then becoming more discerning. Because even if you clean up your act and mourn and grieve and go through whatever you go through with your current narcissistic relationship, anything I've got, you will run into this again in some arena of your life. And you have to be able to be discerning so this time they don't get it.
As you said in the book, the tiger can't change its stripes.
No.
Okay, so there's some hints to healing there, and you go a lot deeper in the book. Again, I'll share the title. It's not you identifying and healing from narcissistic people. If we are to chart a course as an individual, you've given us a little bit of a path there with radical acceptance. Let's talk culturally. Zoom out one more time here, and I think the best way to affect change is to affect it in yourself first. But I would like to have us have a lens toward the future. What's possible culturally? Let's just say we can snap our fingers and paint a picture. What would that picture look like?
So again, I'm gonna before I go to the big lens, like a world where teachers are paid as much as CEOs, because we really looked at cultural value. Pediatricians would be the highest paid medical professionals. They're often the lowest paid. So to children's education and safety, and we pay them commensurate with the importance of the work. Imagine that. Because now you have all these baller second grade teachers like driving the fancy cars, living in the big old houses as they should.
It's going to be no surprise to you that my wife is a middle school teacher, so.
Of course she is, and that's most challenging to the most important. But here's the thing now. If I had somebody wants out there, one wish in the world, and I think that would change all of this, is protect all children from trauma. It's that simple. If we could protect, listen, I'm not talking that every child has like these perfect kinds of forever attuned parents. Wouldn't that be lovely? Let's just get the trauma off the table. That children are not physically abused, sexually abused, emotionally abused, and when they are, that we have immediate and responsive systems in place to take care of these kids. And because even our child protective services do not understand narcissism, domestic violence services do not understand narcissism, children get harmed and harmed again and are often not believed, and people who are harmed in relationships are often not believed. If there was one thing we could do that could really pull this weed out by the roots, it would be address that, and I can tell you that, frankly, it's impossible. I know it's not going to happen.
Right.
It's a naive want, right? But that's really what it is.
This is the essence of my question, so I really appreciate you.
Right.
There's a difference between actualizing that and understanding what would stop this process.
Correct. So that's that piece. Now, the piece I do, so for example, one thing that's often troubled me is when we talk, and there's a lot more open conversation about mental health and addiction now, which I'm very, very grateful for. However, one thing we've never done a good job of talking about is how does the presence of, for example, a personality style like narcissism in a person harm the people around them? We're even a little bit cagey about talking about the negative impacts of mental health disorders on the people around the person, as though it's like, well, that person's suffering. We shouldn't worry about the people around them. I said, the hell you shouldn't. You ever spend time with a family member of an addict? They've been through it. They've been through it hard. And we often do not support them, or we write them off as codependents and leave it as that. The same exact thing happened to people who are experiencing narcissistic relationships. I get pushback every damn day about how, like, well, the narcissistic person may have trauma, or the narcissistic person's going through something, or maybe you just, like, it sounds like you're blaming them. I ain't blaming anyone. I am telling people what constitutes acceptable behavior and breaking them out of cycles of justification. Because what we've always done is almost like we've created an entire class of people who are supposed to exist in service to the narcissistic people and just be what they need them to be, and everything will be fine. Just shh, don't bother Dad because he's in a bad mood because he came home from work. But that's the world now. And I think that if we have people who are trained to work with clients going through this and never ask irresponsible questions like, why don't you leave? Why we can't leave. Family court is screwed up. Everything is screwed up. And so fix those systems. Address the family court system. Have judges who understand narcissism and the harm this has on children. You have curricula, not just K through 5, nail it out before K through 6. Kids are sweet at that age. Middle school, actually, where you're whiteboard, that's where the problems begin. That's what I'm saying. Middle school teachers are actually probably one of the most influential educational seats, I think, in this country. The hormones start to rage. The psychosocial stuff starts to show up.
They start to be access devices,
Yep.
all that stuff too.
They can access devices. Peers become more important than parents and adults. It's a huge switchover place. There should be so much more psychological social education happening at that age. We're so obsessed with them learning like algebra 2. I'm like, oh my God, algebra 2. They need to know how to avoid this personality stuff and be better, show up as better, and also through some of the invalidation that they may have experienced their entire lives. A lot of these kids are going through it at home, and nobody is talking about it because we're so scared of bringing up the stuff that's home. That's their personal business. It's not their personal business. It's all of our business. Because every time a child is facing down consistent invalidation at home, that affects their personality in a way that's going to turn them to an adult that won't be walking through the world as a fully functioning person. So you better believe it's all of our problems. These are the huge cultural lifts. And it's also about addressing things like authoritarianism, like addressing patriarchy. We need more equity and balance. We need less asymmetry. That's where we live right now. Lots of people, have very little power. Very few hold it all, whether it's through money or access to platforms or whatever. But we've got a lot of work to do. I'm a big fan of saying tend your front garden. It's like a twist on Voltaire, basically. Something I wrote about in my first book, second book, and this book as well, which is I am not going to protect all children from trauma. I am not going to overhaul K through 12 systems all over the planet. But what I've done is I've developed a training program for therapists, 36 hours with certification that therapists at least can learn about how to work with clients going through these relationships without blaming them and wondering like, well, was it how you talk to them? I've heard of therapists say to clients, well, maybe your anxiety is why he's so angry. No, yelling is not okay. We're not holding space for this person's yelling and abusive comments. We've got to get people to identify unacceptable behavior as unacceptable. That's where this is going.
Okay, this is the last question that I have for today, and I think it's potentially spicy. Because my understanding, just a little retread, is we talked a little bit about at the individual level, right? The identification at the individual level, the healing, and then we zoomed out and we talked a little bit about as much as we can, and given the constraints of our conversation here, time and whatnot. Then we zoomed out culturally, identifying sort of narcissism and how culturally just went through a lovely articulation of what needs to happen culturally. We know that's a big bite that we need to take. Statistically, some people who are listening to the show right now are narcissists. What message do you have for them? And is it possible to send sort of a message of optimism and healing, or is it just like, F off, stop running it for everybody? Like, what's the message to the narcissist?
I would never say F off and stop ruining it for everybody. It's do the work. That's the message. Do the damn work. All the rest of us are. We're crying our souls out in the therapist's office every day because of all the invalidation we've experienced. Do the work. Show up in therapy. Be accountable. Take responsibility. Understand what's involved in the human relationship. Get out of your own damn way. But listen, what I'm saying, 90% of people's personality style will roll their eyes, look at their device. I've experienced contempt and react. But there are people out there, every so often there'll be the narcissistic person who cheated on wives and girlfriends or partners, or, was a jerk at work and took advantage of people, threw people under the bus, and one day they become a dad. And that's the day they're like, okay, am I going to keep being a jerk? A lot of them do. But then there's some who say, okay, something's got to give. Not every narcissistic person hits a rock bottom. Some do, but not everyone does. Sometimes they lose everybody, right? The kid stops being a child, the wife leaves, nobody wants them. If you're a well-resourced narcissistic person, you're always going to be able to find a much younger partner to take up with you when you're a very old person, right? So there's always going to be someone working the same way. You will end up dying alone somewhere. And it's but I've noticed people are very reward-driven, but not consequence-driven. So they're thinking about what's in front of them. It's a tough thing as a public call-out, right? I think that it is do the work, but really do the work. Therapy is not meant to be performative. Like, you see people in a city like LA, it's not like the olden days where people would be ashamed to talk about being in therapy, which is a good thing. But a lot of narcissistic folks actually have their whole therapy industrial complex working. They got the therapist, they got the coach, they got the men's group, they got the kale smoothie group, they've got the morning hikes, they got the meditation this, they've got the microdosing that, the psychedelic, whatever the hell it is that. They got their whole thing going, but they're making absolutely no progress. Because ultimately, to address your narcissism is to hold space for your vulnerability, for your shame, to let go of the construct of perfectionism, to accord other people's needs at the same level as yours, to pull yourself out as the sun in the solar system, and perhaps make yourself a lesser planet. And that is a huge shift. And what we see with a lot of narcissistic folks is that some of them will make a little bit of progress in therapy. It's usually not enough to save a relationship, but they're very reactive. So if things don't go their way, the launch doesn't go the way they want, or the money doesn't come in the way that they want, or somebody rejects them the way they don't want, they're very reactive and angry. Sorry is not an eraser. This idea that an apology makes it better is BS and narcissistic. Learn to apologize. Like, at least if you're going to apologize, do it right and be accountable. Not, I'm sorry you feel that way. Learn to make amends. Learn to take accountability. Learn that some people don't come around. Learn that you may not always be forgiven because you don't get to be forgiven, especially if you screwed someone twice. It's all of that stuff. But it's about humility. It's about vulnerability. It's about addressing shame. And, if somebody's narcissistic and they say, but, I had a rough childhood. My old man was a tough guy and he threw me around, then get trauma work, because that's trauma. That means those are old wounds. Get in there. Do that trauma work. Like, it's work, and it's humble work. It has to matter to you. For most people, they don't have any skin in the game because they think everything's fine, especially if they're at the top of their game.
So insightful, so helpful. I want to say thank you. It's been an absolute treat having you on the show. Again, the book for everybody out there. It's Not You. Identifying and Healing from Narcissistic People. Thank you so much for being a guest and for sharing.
I found the quickest way to land a job in the next 30 days of 2024. And the best part is media, right? Academic false and false narratives that I've pushed on as well. Just
describing that something like this can happen, will happen, and then a very dangerous virus will escape and kill half the world. And that's why people reset into this mind frame where you hear the trigger word of pandemic of the virus and everyone is fearful and goes along with the narrative.
We had the movie Contagion, a Hollywood movie that was outbreak. Contagion. I thought Contagion to me was spot on. It was like came out just a few short years before this happened, and it showed us exactly what unfolded almost from the market. You know, it happened over in Asia somewhere, and suddenly all of America is locked down. It's a disaster. I forget was it one of the mountains really thinking about?
Yes, they always have big stars in these movies, big stars and big budgets for very strangely contrived stories.
Right. So we're supposed to believe that was the case, and we were all pre-programmed. So that's what we were told, right? That's what happened. That market, the bad thing, whatever. It comes to America, we're gonna really lock ourselves down, hate being the Chinese, block ourselves off. But what's the truth? What really happened here?
Well, so the truth turns out that this was all preset way years before. So from this leaked audio, but it's not the only source. This is just a confirmatory evidence that I obtained. But prior to that, I reviewed the DoD and DARPA contracts that were given for COVID countermeasures, which is all these vaccines and biologics and therapeutics are classified as. So I reviewed hundreds of contracts. They all indicate that this is pre-planned because we were also led to believe that this 400 contracts for $50 billion were supposed to be signed in a matter of weeks, but like 1 or 2 weeks. Some of them came out as early as middle of February or even early February. So you're telling me, okay, on January 10th, we identified the virus. By February 14th, we have issued, $50 billion worth of contracts, negotiated all the terms, signed with all the pharmas. So of course, not these contracts were coming from years beforehand. So there was a lot of evidence that there was huge pre-planning of this activity, and now I have this tape confirming exactly the same thing.
Before we get to the tape, you've worked obviously in the pharmaceutical industry with a lot of clients for many, many years, so you know this intimately. How long would it take from, hey, we've discovered something, we need to start working on a vaccine for it, to getting paperwork together to have it signed, sealed, and delivered? Like, what would the timetable normally be if this wasn't pre-planned?
Yeah, so for a contract that's of this size and scope, it would take easily a year to negotiate all the terms, negotiate the deliverables, negotiate the R&D schedules and timelines, and all sorts of things. So easily can take a year. Okay, I can say if you were in hiring, maybe 6 months. So that's just the contract. But then the development itself, well, it can take 10 years to properly develop something and go through all the phases of approval as for the drugs and cosmetics act prescribed for normal pharmaceutical approvals. That's why everybody was shocked that this came on the market so quickly.
So let's talk about this leaked audio. What do we hear in this audio that confirms that this was pre-planned?
Right, so the audio conversation, it has a video. I removed the video just out of caution. The video doesn't add additional information. The audio is from a meeting, internal meeting in AstraZeneca, and it includes 2 speakers. First is the CEO of AstraZeneca, Pascal Soro, and the second one is VP Mark Esser, who was in charge of monoclonal antibody development program. And they're discussing their success of monoclonal antibody in the U.S., a success of approval at some time at the end of 2020. And so they're referring back to the history of this, and then Mark Esser says that we were started working with the Department of Defense pandemic preparedness program in 2017. He also mentions that they were approached by the Department of Defense, Colonel Matt Happer in particular, with a proposal that they would be working on something like this with the DoD to develop vaccines and therapeutics within 60 days of DoD identifying pathogenic virus that can cause global pandemics. And at that time, Mark Esser said, I thought because that was the appropriate reaction to it. It is science fiction. You can't do that. But of course, AstraZeneca was convinced by money, and they joined the consortium of many companies, of which I reviewed hundreds of contracts. And that consortium is called FCDC, the DoD consortium of a huge number of pharmaceutical companies, academic institutions, and other organizations. They're all involved in this, and that's been going on for years. So that's what they discussed. Then they said, oh, and so we were working on, they were calling it avian influenza models. And then on February 4th, 2020, they received a call from DOTI, this was all the pharma companies did at the time, to switch to COVID and start immediately working on COVID vaccines and products. And so my question is, February 4th, if you look back, we have 11 cases of COVID in the United States and no deaths. These all PCR cases. There's nothing going on in terms of pandemics. And DoD is calling from a company selling this national security threat. Please do what? And start working on COVID. It's basically, yes, it appears to be the case because February 4th, again, the timeline is very telling. So on February 4th, DoD, so we don't have any information coming out. Nobody's informed in the public. The DoD goes ahead with the pharma consortium to start working on COVID. And at that time, also, there was a good article by Russell Institute. They kind of traced Trump's tweets at the time and when did he change his mind about lockdowns. It looks like he changed his mind about lockdowns between 10th and 11th of March. So a month later. Here we already have DoD saying, hey guys, go work on this, right? So under whose authority? So Trump changes his position between 10th and 11th, and then
if we want to build a better working world, you bring to the organization people who at the end of the day have different experiences. For EY, it's part of our business, it's part of our DNA. Let's create an environment.
Soaring in Canada, retirement is becoming a distant memory for most Canadians and most people in the Western world. So let's get right into this and see what's going on. So bankruptcies are soaring, but especially in Canada. This is a really bad sign for the labour market. It's a bad sign for the economy entirely, but it's a really bad sign. And the reason why I say that is because when you look at private debt to GDP, it's one of the highest metrics when you look at Canada. Like private debt to GDP is over 260%. It even surpasses household debt to GDP, which is over 100%. It's still completely insane. So bear that in mind, and let's continue on here and see what the Financial Post is saying about this. So the number of businesses that filed for insolvency was at the highest in 13 years. Okay, 13 years. So that puts us back to 2012. Was that a brilliant time when the economy was absolutely pretty higher? No, it was 4 years, 5 years after the financial crisis, essentially, and it was when a lot of businesses were still struggling, especially those that were in debt. So it's very interesting. So according to the figures out last week from the Federal Office of the Superintendent of Bankruptcy, volumes rose 35% in the fourth quarter from the third, and more than doubled compared to the same quarter a year ago. And you
then you get done not the better. Look at this. You have to go all the way back to when around the financial crisis. Of course, that's when the economy was absolutely booming, guys. Everything was absolutely fine, and nothing is possible going wrong here, is it? I mean, it's just absolutely crazy what is going on, but some people are just asleep at the wheel, essentially. So just to put this into comparison, you could basically see the rise in bankruptcies, and you can see that France, Canada, UK also have a problem. The G7 average is up. I love it when they put this in here, guys, because basically the reason they do this is to make it look like the government does this. Don't you notice how the government also does this comparison, and also the mainstream media do it? And it's really funny, that, isn't it? Is it just a coincidence? I don't think so. So anyway, they put this as a comparison compared to everybody else in the G7 line, who is also in massive amounts of debt. It's debt, household debt, their standard of living are going down. And you always hear the government, especially Christian Freedom, who goes, it's not just Canada that is experiencing inflation, it's the UK, it's Europe, it's the United States. Oh, so that's your get out of jail free card, just compared to other countries that also have insane amounts of debt, that also have massive asset levels, flat housing, but in other areas as well. It's just absolutely crazy, guys, what we have to put up with. And then they also talk about business owners who are unable to pay back government pandemic loans, known as SEMA, by the January 19th deadline, now have to pay 5% interest and make monthly payments on what was previously an interest-free loan with no monthly payment. So that happened, guys. So remember, the CFIB was coming out saying all these businesses are going to go bankrupt and everything's going to go wrong. And essentially, you can't go because a lot of businesses are going bankrupt right now in Canada. The data backs that up. Put that on a 1-year chart, it looks absolutely insane. Put it on a 5-year chart, it looks absolutely insane. But the government, if they put it on a 25-year chart, I'm sure they'll be going, oh, well, it's not as bad as it was after 2008. Absolutely ludicrous. But now I want to show you this, guys, because this is crazy. And basically, it shows how economies have shifted. And Canada's shifted right into last place. Oh, what a great job this government is doing. Well, what a great job the banking system is doing as well. Because it's not just the government, it's a combination of the government, the oligarchs in the banking system, and the massive corporations that essentially control this country. This is the cost of corruption. And I don't think if you change one government, one politician, you're going to influence this massively, because it is ingrained into Canada right now. And we've seen this happen slowly over the past 20 years. It hasn't just been the past 8 years. You will not even certain politicians who have to believe that. But anyway, this is what's essentially happened. If you look at Canada in 1993, it was nearly in last place. Then it disappeared entirely off the chart, and now it's back in 2023 at the bottom here, so not doing very well. You can see how China has advanced. You can see how Japan has declined. Germany up, because basically Germany just overtook Japan. Japan now in recession. UK is in recession as well. They pretty much stagnated until 2008, but now they're coming down as well. Italy going down. So you can definitely see how different economies have performed. It's an interesting visual just for that. And now I want to show you this, because this is crazy as well, but it's not really when you think about it. So a massive survey, in fact one of the biggest surveys done, shows that most people cannot afford to retire. But I think this is a ticking time bomb right now. By the time people my age get to retire, there's already kind of including retirement will exist. I mean, I think the government pension will probably buy you a load of bread at that point. If you look at purchasing power and how it's declined over the past 30 years, it's really not what it used to be. And the same is true in England, the same is true in the United States as well. So retirement outreach for almost 40% of working Canadians over 50. I mean, look at this, guys. Canadians are moving to Mexico, chasing a better life, not a hybrid. The reason why is because they can't even afford, number one, to retire in Canada, so they have to go. I was chatting to Angelo, who follows his channel, and his friend, and I was basically saying to him the other day, I was saying this snowbird is turning into a tropical bird, because in the past, Canadians were able to afford to be snowbirds, but that is not happening anymore. People cannot afford to do that, and especially with the housing
declining as well. They need to sell and get out. So obviously that creates essentially a pyramid scheme because all the people have already started doing this. This is already starting, guys. I've been saying about this for years. Essentially the people at the top started selling, moving away, but there's only so long that that's going to work for. So it's just insane that this is what's happening. So let's dig into the survey. So saving for retirement was a struggle for inflation in the roof in this country. Over the past few years, it's become more of an uphill battle. Higher borrowing costs, inflation, and stock market volatility have added more challenges in preparing for retirement. Really, guys? Stock market's at all-time high right now. Doesn't that mean the economy's moving? No, it's just some stocks pulling up indexes at all-time high. Most people
Holy fuck.
right now, and it's not
Oh. Figure out how to get over it win.
It's fucking nuts.
Wanna go hide in the basement?
Yeah. Bathtub. There's someone walking in there. And then they just saw someone walking outside. I'm gonna go offer him a lift. It would be terrible. Hope Rod's okay. Holy fuck. Mm. Indeed. Mm.